He told her it was a joke. She got in the truck anyway. One impulsive decision in a rainy parking lot. One woman running from a husband who owned her smile, her money, her silence. One man who had nothing left to lose and a daughter in the back seat who still believed the world was good. But someone was watching. Someone always knew exactly where they were. And before this road trip was over, secrets buried for years would crawl into the light. And one very powerful man would discover that the woman he spent a decade controlling had been recording every word. If this story has you already, hit like and drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The morning Logan Reed planned to leave Portland, the sky cracked open like it had a grudge. He'd been loading the RV since 5:30. Duffel bags, a cooler packed with enough food for a week, Maya's backpack with the broken zipper he kept forgetting to fix, a toolkit he hadn't opened in 3 years but always brought anyway. The routine felt good. It was the 1 week out of 52 where he didn't have to think too hard about anything, just the road, his daughter, and wherever the map pointed them next. "Daddy, it's raining." Maya appeared in the doorway of their house, 8 years old and wrapped in a dinosaur blanket she'd dragged from her bed. Her dark hair was sleep-flattened on one side. I noticed. "We're still going?" "We're still going." She considered this with the serious expression she'd had since she was 3, the one that made her look like she was consulting some internal committee before issuing a verdict. Then she disappeared back inside to get dressed. Logan hoisted the last bag into the back of his truck and pulled the door shut. The rain hit his shoulders and the back of his neck, and he stood there for a second just letting it, because there was something about rain before a trip that felt earned, like the weather was testing you, making sure you meant it. That's when he saw her. Sophia Bennett was standing on the sidewalk in front of the house next door, and she was soaked. Not caught in a drizzle soaked. Not forgot my umbrella soaked. She was standing in it like she'd been there for a while and had stopped caring. A duffel bag sat on the wet pavement at her feet. She was dressed in dark jeans and a light jacket that was doing absolutely nothing against the weather, and she was staring at her phone with an expression Logan couldn't quite read, somewhere between fury and the kind of flat, emptied-out calm that comes after you've already said the worst things. He'd lived next door to Sophia Bennett for 2 years. He knew her the way neighbors know each other in a city like Portland, well enough to wave, well enough to say your porch light was on all night, or I signed for a package for you, not well enough to know anything real. She was always moving, that was what he knew about her. Always leaving early and coming back late, always on her phone, always slightly dressed for somewhere more important than here. Her husband drove a car Logan couldn't name, but could estimate the price of, and the few times Logan had crossed paths with him, the man had given him a handshake that felt like it was communicating something. But right now, Sophia Bennett didn't look like a CEO. She looked like someone who had just put down something very heavy and wasn't entirely sure her arms still worked. Logan grabbed his rain jacket from the cab and walked over. "Hey," he said, "you okay?" She looked up from her phone. Up close he could see the red around her eyes. Not fresh crying, but the kind that had dried and been rubbed and dried again. "I'm fine," she said, which was clearly untrue. "You've been standing in the rain for—" He glanced toward his house and back. "A while." "I'm fine," she said again, with slightly less conviction. From inside the house next door came the sound of something. A door, or maybe a glass, hitting a hard surface. Sophia's jaw tightened. She didn't look back. "He throw you out?" Logan asked. He kept his voice neutral. Not nosy, just asking. "No." A pause. "I left." "Okay." She looked at him then, really looked at him, like she was trying to figure out if he was going to say something annoying. When he didn't, some of the tension around her mouth eased, slightly. "Where are you going?" she asked, nodding toward the truck. "Road trip, me and my daughter. We do it every year. Just drive north, camp a few nights, no agenda." "That sounds nice." "It is." He hesitated, and then, because the situation was absurd, and she looked like she needed something to break the mood, he said, "You want to come?" He meant it as a joke. The way you say you should have seen his face, just something to cut the tension. She said, "Yes." He blinked. I know you were joking." She bent down and picked up her duffel bag. I don't care. Yes. Logan stood there for a moment, rain running down his collar, trying to think of a reasonable response to what was happening. He was a practical man. He liked things that made sense. A woman he barely knew asking to join a week-long road trip with him and his 8-year-old daughter because she'd had a bad morning did not make sense. On the other hand, she was standing in the rain with a bag, and whatever was behind that front door wasn't good, and his truck had room. You should know, he said carefully, we're not going anywhere glamorous. State parks, campfire food, bad cell service. Perfect. Maya's 8. She narrates everything. I like kids. I don't know your music taste, but I have strong opinions about aux cord privileges. Something shifted in Sophia's face. Not quite a smile, but adjacent to one. I can live with that. He looked at her for another moment. Then he turned and walked toward the truck. 5 minutes? We're leaving in 5 minutes whether you've changed your mind or not. She followed him. Patem. Maya came out dressed in rain boots that didn't match her pants, a backpack shaped like a turtle, and the expression of someone ready to be opinionated about everything she encountered. She stopped when she saw Sophia. Who's that? Our neighbor, Sophia. She's coming with us. Maya looked at Sophia with the assessing stare she used on new foods and strangers equally. Why? Because she asked. Do you know her? She lives next door. That's not the same as knowing someone. Logan gave his daughter a look. Maya. I'm just saying. But she turned to Sophia and said, with the solemn courtesy of someone who had been taught manners and applied them selectively. Hi, I'm Maya. I like turtles, and I'm very good at geography games. Sophia crouched slightly so she was closer to eye level. I'm terrible at geography games, she said. You'll probably beat me every time. Maya considered this. That's okay. I'll go easy on you. Logan caught the brief flicker in Sophia's expression at that. Something that arrived fast and disappeared just as quickly, like a light switched on in a room, then immediately off. He filed it away without examining it. Get in, he said. Both of you. They were 20 minutes out of the city before anyone said anything that mattered. Maya had claimed the back seat like a small warlord claiming territory, surrounded by her backpack, a stuffed elephant named Gerald, and a notebook she used for what she called important observations. She'd asked Sophia approximately 14 questions in the first 10 minutes. Favorite color, preferred dinosaur, opinions on mushrooms, and appeared to be compiling a verdict. The rain hadn't let up. Logan had the wipers going and the defrost running, and the road ahead had that underwater quality that comes with heavy morning rain, everything blurred at the edges. Sophia sat in the passenger seat with her duffel bag at her feet and her phone face down on her knee. She hadn't turned it over once. You don't have to explain anything, Logan said. He kept his eyes on the road. Just so you know. I know. I'm not asking. I know, she said again. Then, his name is Adrian. Logan said nothing. Just let the space stay open. Adrian Cross. She said the name like she was testing the weight of it. We've been married for 4 years. Well, almost divorced for the last 8 months, technically. She exhaled. He didn't take the filing well. Most people don't. He's not most people. She turned to look out the passenger window. He's very good at being liked. That's the thing about him, the thing nobody ever sees from the outside. He walks into a room and people they trust him. He's charming without trying. He makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. A pause. Until you're not. Logan's hand stayed loose on the wheel. He'd learned a long time ago that certain conversations needed to be driven, not steered. When did it change? He asked. I don't know that it ever changed, Sophia said slowly. I think it was always what it was. I just got better at seeing it. She glanced down at her phone. He monitors my email. Did it for probably 2 years before I figured out how. By the time I found the app, he'd already read everything, so messages to my lawyers, my financial advisors, my sister. A short, humorless sound. He framed it as concern, said I'd been stressed and he was worried. That's not concern. No, it's not. She said it quietly, without heat, like someone who'd processed the anger already and was now just working through the aftermath. He also moved money. Not obviously, not in ways that would get him arrested, but enough that when I started the divorce proceedings, certain accounts looked different than I knew they should. Your own money? Some of it mine, some of it company related. I built the company, but he had access. I trusted him with access. She stopped. That's the thing I keep coming back to. I gave him the access. I handed him the keys because I thought that's what marriage was. From the back seat, Maya was quietly coloring in her notebook, apparently absorbed, but Logan knew his daughter well enough to know she was listening to every word while pretending she wasn't. You said he has a good reputation, Logan said. Publicly. Impeccable. The word came out flat. Philanthropy, community work, all of it. He's very careful. He never loses his temper in public, never says anything he can't walk back. He's been doing this, managing image, since before I met him. A pause. His lawyers are very good, better than mine were at the start. At the start? She turned from the window. I changed attorneys, found someone better. His name was Daniel Marsh. Something crossed her face, a hesitation that was slightly too long. He was very good. He'd started finding things, inconsistencies in the financial records, transfers that didn't line up. She stopped. He died in January. Logan glanced at her. How? Car accident. Ice on the road, guardrail, into the river. She said it in a careful, leveled voice. The police ruled it an accident. But Daniel didn't drink, and he drove that road every day for 11 years, and the morning it happened, the temperature hadn't dropped below freezing. She turned back to the window. I don't have proof. I'm not making an accusation. I'm just telling you what I know. The rain intensified for a moment, the wipers working harder, and Logan let the silence hold. Mommy? Said Maya from the back seat. A beat of silence. Sorry, Maya said quickly, in a smaller voice. I forgot. Logan felt the familiar pull in his chest. Not grief anymore, exactly. Just the shape that grief left behind. It's okay, Bug. Maya leaned forward and touched Sophia's shoulder. Sorry, she said again, to Sophia this time. I didn't mean to. You don't have to apologize, Sophia said. Her voice had shifted, softer, without the careful flatness from before. You didn't do anything wrong. I called you the wrong thing. You called me something kind, Sophia said. That's okay. Maya sat back, opened her notebook again. Logan watched the road. Nobody said anything for a few miles, and it was the comfortable kind of nothing. Batit. They stopped for gas outside Longview, a place with one pump and a cashier who had opinions about the weather that he expressed at length to anyone in range. Maya disappeared into the small convenience store and emerged with a bag of pretzels, a road atlas she did not need because she had never in her life used a physical map, and a keychain shaped like a turtle that she presented to Sophia with the gravity of an official gift. For the trip, Maya said. Sophia turned the keychain over in her palm. Thank you. It's a symbol of good luck, Maya said, which Logan was about 90% sure she had just decided was true. I could use some of that. Everyone can. Maya nodded, satisfied, and climbed back into the truck. Sophia stood by the passenger door and looked at the keychain for a moment. Then she looked at Logan, who was checking the tire pressure because that was the sort of thing that occupied him when he didn't know what to say. Can I ask you something? She said. Go ahead. Why did you say yes when I said I'd come? You don't know me. This is clearly not how you planned this trip to go. Logan straightened up, thought about it honestly. I don't know, he said. I guess you were standing in the rain with a bag, and whatever you were standing outside of looked worse than the road ahead. She nodded slowly. That's a reasonable calculation. Also, he said, Maya already likes you. Once she likes someone, she tells me about it for weeks, so this saves time. Sophia laughed, a real one, short and surprised. And for a moment she looked about 10 years younger, or maybe just more like herself. Logan got back in the driver's seat and didn't make a thing of it. By noon, the rain had softened to a gray mist and they were into Washington, following the interstate north through stands of dark fir and stretches of flat farmland that still had last night's fog caught in the low spots. Maya had fallen asleep in the back seat with Gerald the elephant under her chin, her important observations notebook open to a page that said, in purple marker, "Sophia has nice eyes. She seems sad. I think she needs pretzels." Logan had read it in the rearview mirror. He didn't mention it. "Tell me about the paintings," he said. Sophia looked over. "How do you know about the paintings?" "I don't. I'm asking." She was quiet for a moment. "I painted when I was young, before the company, before all of it. I was actually decent." She said it without false modesty, just matter of fact. "I stopped when I married Adrian. No particular event, no fight about it. It just stopped being mine, the way things do when someone else is always in the room. That happens. I started again 2 years ago. Secretly, which is a strange thing to say about painting, but that's what it was. I rented a small studio under a different name. I went on Tuesday mornings when Adrian had standing meetings." She looked at her hands. "The work I made. It was different from anything I'd done before. More honest. It showed things I didn't know how to say out loud. And someone wanted to show them. A gallery in Seattle, small but respected. The owner, her name is Helen Park. She saw the work and she called me and she said," Sophia paused, "she said it was the kind of work that needed to be seen." "That's real." "It was real," she exhaled. "Adrian found out. I don't know how. He read my emails, so probably there. He went to see Helen. I don't know exactly what he said to her, but she called me afterward and she was frightened, said she needed to postpone the exhibition indefinitely." Sophia's voice stayed even, but Logan could hear the effort in it. "Then he told people I was unstable, that I'd been struggling mentally, that the company was suffering because of my judgment. He filed motions with the divorce lawyers saying I was in no condition to manage company assets." A pause. "And he told his lawyers that I stole a ring." "What ring?" "His mother's ring. Emerald, 19th century, valuable enough to matter, but more than that. It was the kind of thing that could make me look like a certain kind of person in front of a judge." She turned to face Logan. "His mother gave it to me herself. 3 years ago, before she got sick. She pressed it into my hand and she said, keep this, you'll need it someday. I didn't understand what she meant then. And now? Now I think she knew her son better than anyone else did." She looked back out the window. "I have no proof she gave it to me. She died last year. Adrian says she would never have done it, that I must have taken it. And the paintings, are they connected? The ring and the art?" Sophia tilted her head slightly. "Maybe. Not directly. But together they're a story he can tell about me. Unstable woman with delusions of artistic significance who steals from her dying mother-in-law." She said it flatly, like she was reading a script someone else had written. "It's effective. It makes everything I say sound like the rationalizations of someone not to be believed." Logan considered the road ahead. "What happened to your new attorney after Marsh?" "I found someone through a colleague, someone Adrian doesn't have a relationship with." She hesitated. "She's good. She thinks we can rebuild the financial case, but it takes time. And in the meantime, Adrian has resources, ways of making time expensive. He's trying to run you out of money. He's trying to run me out of everything." She said it without drama, like she was simply identifying weather conditions. Money, reputation, family. "A family?" She didn't answer immediately, just looked at the mist coming off the fields and the dark line of trees ahead. "My sister," she said finally. "Carla. She's 26. She's always looked up to Adrian, always trusted him. He has a talent for," she searched for the word, "positioning himself as the reasonable one, the one who's just trying to help." Her hand settled in her lap. She signed statements, corroborating his version of things. "Your own sister." "My own sister." A pause. "I don't think she fully understood what she was doing. I don't think she's malicious. But that doesn't change what the statements say." Logan thought about what it would take to make someone believe that about a sibling. The patience, the consistency, the incremental replacement of small truths with small lies until the shape of things was entirely different. "He's been working on her a long time," Logan said. Yes, Sophia said, probably since before I filed. The mist was thickening again to rain, light and steady, and the wipers returned to their rhythm. From the back seat, Maya made a small sleeping sound and shifted the elephant to her other arm. You know what the worst part is? Sophia said after a while. Her voice was lower now. Not sad exactly, but worn. I built a company from nothing. I have 43 employees. I have a board who trusted me, investors who believed in me. I know what I'm worth professionally. I know it. She paused. And still, after 4 years with him, some part of me kept wondering if he was right. About the unstable part. About the delusional part. About all of it. She stopped. That's the thing he actually took from me. Not the money, not the ring. The part of me that trusted my own reading of things. Logan didn't say he wasn't right. Didn't say you're not those things. She didn't need a verdict from a stranger. That part comes back, he said instead. It just takes time. She looked at him. You know that from experience? My wife died, he said. It came out the way it usually did now. Clean, declarative, not designed to produce a reaction. 4 years ago, cancer, it took a while. He watched the road. After, I kept doubting everything, every decision, every call, every plan, like she had been the only one who actually understood things clearly, and without her I was just guessing. How'd you get past it? Mostly Maya, a slight curve at the corner of his mouth. She needs breakfast every morning, no matter what kind of spiral you're in. That's clarifying. Sophia looked back toward the sleeping child in the rearview mirror. She's remarkable. She's a lot of work. Those are usually the same thing. He glanced at her. She was looking ahead at the road now, the key chain from Maya still wrapped loosely around her fingers, and there was something in her profile that had loosened over the last 2 hours. Not the fear gone, not the weight lifted, but the rigid, braced quality she'd had in the rain outside her house had shifted into something closer to human. His phone buzzed against the console. He glanced at the screen. It was a text from a number he didn't recognize, which was not unusual. The message was 3 words, "Enjoy the road." He stared at it for half a second too long. Then he set the phone face down and kept driving. He didn't show Sophia, not yet, but the text bothered him in the particular way that things bother you when they're wrong in a way you can't immediately name. The feeling you get when something that should be random has too much precision in it. They had told no one where they were going. Logan hadn't even decided their first stop yet. He'd figured he'd know when he saw a sign for it. Enjoy the road. Like someone knew exactly what road that was. They stopped for the night at a state park campground outside of Chehalis. Pull-through sites, a communal fire ring, a bathhouse with fluorescent lights that buzzed and flickered. Nothing glamorous. Maya approved completely. She had opinions about the fire, which she communicated freely while Logan built it. She decided Sophia needed to learn how to use a camp stove, which she instructed her in with the brisk authority of someone who had personally conquered this skill and felt it was a duty to pass on. She ate her hot dogs with mustard only, objected to the existence of relish on philosophical grounds that she couldn't quite articulate, and was asleep by 8:30. Logan sat by the fire after he'd gotten her settled, and Sophia came and sat in the other camp chair with a cup of coffee that had gone lukewarm. The trees around them were dark and close, and the rain had stopped, leaving everything clean and wet and smelling like bark. A couple of sites over, someone had a radio going low. Something old, something country. You don't have to stay outside, Logan said. I want to. He poked at the fire. Sparks went up. That text, Sophia said. He went still. He'd set his phone on the camp table earlier, screen up, and she'd seen it at some point. He hadn't said anything about it. He thought. When did you see it? When you went to get Maya's blanket. She wrapped both hands around her mug. You didn't show it to me. I didn't want to. I know. She cut him off, not harshly. I know why you didn't show me. You were being kind. She stared at the fire. But I need you to show me things like that. Okay. I mean it. Don't manage what I can handle. He looked at her. The firelight was uneven on her face, and she looked very tired and very serious, and not in any way fragile. Okay, he said again. Who has your number? She asked. A lot of people. Who knew about the trip? Me and Maya? He thought about it honestly. I mentioned it last week to the guy who runs the shop 2 doors down from mine, and I called my sister, she lives in Bend, just to say I'd be out of cell range for the week. Adrian has resources, Sophia said. Money buys information. A private investigator with access to the right databases can find out a lot from very little. She turned her mug in her hands. If he had someone watching the house this morning, he would have seen you get in my truck. Yes. Logan looked at the text again. Enjoy the road. 3 words. Could be nothing. Could be the kind of coincidence that was just coincidence. Could not be that. Does he know where you are? I don't know, Sophia said, but I think we have to assume he might. They sat with that for a moment. The fire crackled. The country song from 2 sites over wound to an end and started again from the beginning. Do you want to go back? Logan asked. I mean it. No judgment. If you want, we turn around tomorrow. She was quiet for a long time, long enough that he thought she might be considering it seriously. No, she said. I don't want to go back. Then we go forward. Yes. She looked up from the fire. But you should know what you're getting into. If he's tracking us, if he's watching, this is my problem, my situation. You have Maya. If this gets... I know what I have, Logan said. Simple, not defensive. And I also know that you needed to get in a truck this morning, and that's a thing that happened, and we're past the point of deciding whether it was smart. She looked at him for a moment. You're a strange person, Logan Reed. Probably. I mean that as a compliment. I know. She looked back at the fire, pulled her jacket tighter. After a while, she said quietly, so quietly it was almost lost in the sound of the fire, Thank you. He didn't say you're welcome, just nodded and poked at the fire again and let the night settle around them. But later, lying in the bunk at the front of the RV with Maya's small, warm weight beside him, and the trees outside making sounds in the faint wind, he thought about the text. 3 words. Someone watching a house in Portland and a truck pulling out in the rain and a phone number they shouldn't have had. He thought about a man who was good at being liked, who had money and lawyers and a private investigator and a plan that had been running for months. He thought about what it meant to be that carefully hunted. He didn't sleep well. And somewhere in the dark Washington night, outside the campground perimeter, a car sat with its lights off and its engine running. The second morning started better than the first. Logan woke before Maya, which was unusual, and lay still for a few minutes listening to the particular quiet of a campground in early morning. Birds doing what birds do, wind moving through the upper branches, someone 2 sites over running water. The sound of the highway was far enough away to be almost pleasant. Maya was curled against the wall of the bunk with Gerald tucked under her arm and her mouth slightly open. Logan looked at her for a moment, the way he did sometimes when he thought no one was watching, just taking inventory. She was fine. She was here. That was still 4 years after losing her mother, the calculation he ran first thing every morning, just to be sure. He climbed out carefully and pulled on yesterday's jeans and went to check on Sophia. She was already awake, sitting outside on the small step at the RV door with a mug of coffee, watching the campground come to life. She'd changed clothes, darker jeans, a gray pullover, and her hair was pulled back, still damp at the ends. She looked like someone who hadn't slept enough but had made peace with it. There's more in the pot, she said without turning around. You figured out the camp stove. Maya gave very thorough instructions. She moved over slightly on the step to make room. He sat beside her and accepted the mug she held out, already poured. It was too strong, which was how he liked it. You sleep at all? He asked. Some. A pause. I kept listening. He understood what that meant, listening for something outside the thin aluminum walls that shouldn't be there. I didn't hear anything, he said. Me neither. She wrapped both hands around her mug. Which doesn't mean nothing was there. She was right about that. He didn't push it. They drank their coffee and watched a family across the way trying to coordinate breakfast under dueling opinions about whether to make eggs or cereal, the parents negotiating with the exhausted patience of people who had been having this argument for years. Can I ask you something? Logan said. You can ask me anything. I might not answer. The paintings, what did they look like? What were they of? She was quiet for a moment, and he thought she might take the second option. Then, the first one I made, the one that started all of it. It was just a room, a well-furnished room, nice light, everything in the right place. But all the furniture was bolted to the floor. Logan looked at her. You couldn't see the bolts, she continued. Not at first. You had to look. The room looked perfect from across the gallery. But up close, if you looked at the legs of the chairs, the base of the tables, all of it was fixed, immovable. She took a sip of coffee. Helen saw it and said, "This is not about furniture." That was the first time I knew someone understood what I was actually saying. And the others? 13 paintings total. All rooms, different rooms, but the same idea running through each of them. Things that looked right from a distance. Things that were wrong up close. She turned the mug in her hands. One was a kitchen with every cabinet door nailed shut. One was a garden that was perfectly arranged, but nothing in it was alive. All plastic. A small pause. I painted one that was just a staircase. Beautiful staircase. Wide and curved, good craftsmanship. But if you followed where it led, it went into a wall. Nowhere. Just ended. Logan sat with that for a moment. And Adrian found out about the exhibition. Yes. What exactly did he say to the gallery owner? Helen. Sophia exhaled slowly. From what she told me, he went in person, which I think was a specific choice. He introduced himself as my husband. He said he was concerned about me, that I'd been struggling, and he was worried the exhibition would be exploitative of someone in a vulnerable mental state. He said it with enormous sincerity. Her voice stayed level, but he could hear the structure holding beneath it. Helen is a careful person. She wasn't going to agree with him, but she was frightened enough to postpone, and in the meantime he filed motions with his lawyers arguing that any income from the work should be considered marital assets under dispute. Can he do that? With the right attorneys and enough delay, he can tie anything up long enough to make it not worth fighting. She turned to look at him. That's his actual strategy, not to win, just to make everything so expensive and so exhausting that I stop. And has it worked? She looked back at the campground, at the family across the way who had reached a serial compromise. I'm here, she said. So I guess the answer is no. Something shifted in the morning light, a cloud moving, and the campground went briefly brighter. Logan drank the rest of his coffee and thought about a man who operated through exhaustion, who didn't need to win, just needed to make the other person too tired to keep standing. It was a particular kind of cruelty, the kind that was almost impossible to prosecute because every individual act looked almost reasonable from the outside. He thought about the text from last night. Enjoy the road. He'd shown it to Sophia after the fire, and they'd agreed on what to do about it, which was nothing yet. Watch. Pay attention. Don't perform a reaction for whoever might be watching. He checked his phone. No new messages from the number. That meant either they had what they needed or they were patient. He suspected patient. Maya emerged 40 minutes later in a state of strong opinions about breakfast. She wanted pancakes. The camp stove could theoretically produce pancakes. Logan's ability to produce pancakes on a camp stove was, historically, mixed. I'll do it, Sophia said. Maya turned to her with the look of someone who had found an unexpected ally. You can make pancakes? I can make passable ones. What's passable mean? Good enough to eat. Probably not pretty. I don't care about pretty, Maya said, with the easy authority of an 8-year-old who had never cared about pretty. Gerald doesn't either. Then we'll be fine. What followed was 20 minutes of organized chaos. Sophia making pancake batter from the dry mix in the camp kit, with Maya providing commentary. Logan sitting on the tailgate of the truck, pretending to look at the map, but mostly watching the two of them. Sophia was patient in a specific way with Maya, not performatively patient, not the too careful patience of someone who didn't know kids, but the natural kind that let Maya be loud and opinionated without constantly redirecting her. When Maya said something incorrect about pancakes, Sophia told her so directly, and Maya accepted this without offense because it was delivered without condescension. The first pancake came out lopsided and slightly burnt on one side. Maya declared it perfect. Logan ate his with more mustard than was probably appropriate and didn't say anything about it. They were breaking down camp, loading the truck, when Sophia's phone rang. She looked at the screen. Something changed in her face. The easy quality of the morning vanished in a single second, replaced by the careful, braced expression Logan recognized from the rain. "It's him," she said. Logan didn't say, "Don't answer." It wasn't his call. Sophia looked at the phone for one more ring. Then she answered, "Adrian." Her voice was entirely neutral. A practice neutral, the kind that came from doing this many times. Logan couldn't hear the other side, but he could hear the shape of it. A voice that was controlled, measured, and underneath the control, something harder. "I'm fine," Sophia said. A pause. "I'm not coming back." Another pause, longer. "Then we'll handle it through our attorneys." She said this with no particular inflection. "Like we've been handling everything else." Whatever came through the phone then was different. The shape changed. Lower, quieter, and Logan recognized the technique from stories he'd heard, from people he'd known who'd been through this. The lowering of the voice was never an indication of cooling down. It was the opposite. Sophia walked away from Logan toward the edge of the campsite where the trees started. She kept her back straight. Logan stayed where he was and didn't pretend he wasn't watching. The conversation went another 2 minutes. He couldn't see her face. At the end, she said, "We're done talking, Adrian," and pulled the phone from her ear and stood very still with her back to Logan and the truck. Maya had noticed. She was standing by the truck door holding Gerald and watching Sophia with the particular alertness of a child who had learned early that adult stillness sometimes meant something was wrong. Logan walked to the tree line. He stood a few feet behind Sophia, not touching, just present. "You okay?" he asked. "He knows I'm not alone," she said. Quiet, flat. "He knows I'm with a man. He knows Maya's name." Logan absorbed that. He thought about the car he'd suspected last night, parked beyond the campground perimeter with its lights off. He thought about what it meant for someone to have that information before 8 in the morning on the second day of a trip he'd told no one about. What did he say about Maya? Sophia turned then. "He said she seems sweet." She looked directly at Logan. "He said it the way you'd say it about a chess piece you'd noticed on the board." Logan didn't move for a moment. Then he said, "Get in the truck," in a voice that was very quiet and very even. Maya got in the truck. Sophia got in the truck. Logan finished loading the last bag, closed the tailgate, and got behind the wheel. He didn't say anything about changing the route, about moving faster, about what came next. He just drove. But Maya, who was 8 and perceptive and had grown up watching her father's face, was quiet in the back seat for almost an hour, which was not normal for her, and she pressed Gerald against her chest and looked out the window at the passing trees. They made it to the town of Packwood by midday, a small place in the shadow of the Cascades, the kind of town that existed mostly in relation to the national forest behind it. Logan stopped for gas and supplies and used the time to think. The route he'd had in his head was a loose northern loop, up through the Cascades, east for a stretch, maybe a night or two at spots he'd used before. But spots he'd used before was now a liability. He'd told his sister he was going up toward the Cascades. General, yes, but not entirely useless if someone was piecing things together. He bought a paper map of the Gifford Pinchot National Forest from the gas station rack, old-fashioned, felt slightly ridiculous, and sat in the cab while Sophia was inside with Maya studying it. There were forest roads on it that wouldn't appear as routes in any GPS or navigation app. Old logging roads, some paved, some not, leading to campgrounds that didn't show up in the first page of search results. Places you knew about because you'd driven into them by accident years ago and written down the turn. Logan had a notebook in the glove box. He'd been keeping it for years. Notes on good campfire spots, bad pull-off points, roads that looked passable and weren't. When Sophia and Maya came back to the truck, Maya with a bag of dried mango and Sophia with 2 more coffees and an expression that suggested the call this morning had settled into her like cold water, he handed Sophia the paper map. "Change of plan," he said. She looked at it. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere that won't show up if someone searches my name in camping." She looked at him over the map. "How do you know these places?" "I've been doing this trip for 5 years." He pulled onto the road. "You learn where the crowds aren't." "Okay." She folded the map along its original crease, which was already wrong, and put it on her knee. "Okay. From the back seat, Maya said, "Are we going somewhere secret?" "More private," Logan said. "That's basically the same thing." "Pretty much." She seemed satisfied with this. They turned off the main road 40 minutes later onto a forest route that was paved for the first mile and then became packed gravel, with opinions. The trees closed in almost immediately. Old growth. Douglas fir so tall the upper canopy was a different climate than the road, and the afternoon light came through in long, slanted pieces that moved when the wind moved the branches. Maya had stopped talking, which Logan had learned meant she was working up to something. 20 minutes in, she said, "Sophia, can I ask you a personal question?" Sophia, who had been watching the trees with the concentrated attention of someone cataloging them, turned. "Sure." "Are you scared?" "A beat." "Yes," Sophia said. Maya nodded. "Me too, sometimes." She fiddled with Gerald's ear. "When my mom died, I was really scared for a long time. Not of the dying part, of after." She paused. "Daddy says being scared means you have something worth protecting." Logan's hand stayed steady on the wheel, though something moved through him quietly. "Your dad's smart," Sophia said. "He's okay." Maya delivered this with affection. "He burns pancakes, though." "I heard that," Logan said. "Good," Maya said. The campsite Logan was looking for was at the end of a spur road that branched off the forest route, down a short drop to a flat clearing beside a creek. No hookups, no facilities except a pit toilet 50 yards into the trees, a fire ring made of river stones that someone had built and maintained over years. The creek was running high from the recent rain, clear and cold, and the sound of it was the first thing you heard when you cut the engine. He'd found this place 3 years ago, by accident, following a wrong turn he hadn't bothered to correct. He'd spent 2 nights here and told no one about it. It wasn't in his sister's general directions. It wasn't in any of his searchable history. It was just a spot on a paper map that he'd written down in his notebook when he left. "This is it," he said. Maya was out of the truck before it fully stopped. They set up camp with the working efficiency of people who had done this before. Logan and Maya in their usual roles, Sophia finding her place in the system faster than he expected, asking practical questions about what went where and not requiring instruction twice. She wasn't a camper. That was clear from the way she looked at the fire ring and the tent poles with the mild wariness of someone problem-solving new equipment. But she was competent, and she paid attention, and she didn't complain about any of it, including the pit toilet, which Logan would have understood. By late afternoon, they had the camp arranged, wood collected, water filtered from the creek. Maya had found the shallow edge of the creek that was only ankle deep and was methodically collecting interesting rocks, narrating their qualities to Gerald. The light was going golden in the way it does in the late afternoon in the mountains, and it had a warmth to it that the last 2 days hadn't had. Logan was splitting wood when Sophia came and leaned against the truck and watched him. "Can I ask you something now?" he said without stopping. "Turnabout?" "The financial stuff, the money he moved. Your new attorney. How far along is the case?" Sophia folded her arms across her chest, thinking. "Far enough that he knows it's a real threat," she said. "That's part of why he's escalating. In the early days, he was managing, not panicking. Now he's—" She paused. "More active." "Do you have documentation, evidence of the transfers?" "My attorney does, some of it, but there are gaps. Transactions that move through intermediary accounts in ways that are difficult to trace directly back to him." She exhaled. "Daniel, my first attorney, before he died, he'd found what looked like a pattern. 3 transactions over 18 months, each through a different entity. He was building the case to show they were connected. When he died, his files transferred to his firm, and there was a period where nothing was where it should be." She looked at the creek. "I don't know what was lost in that transition. I don't know what was lost on purpose." Logan set down the axe. He looked at her directly. "You think someone accessed those files? I think Adrian has money and patience and no particular conscience about how he uses either." She met his gaze. "I can't prove it, but I think Daniel found something real, and I think the car going off that road wasn't ice." They stood with that between them for a moment, the creek running behind Sophia and the light coming through the trees. "Have you told your current attorney about what Daniel found?" Logan asked. "Everything I remember, but he was careful. He didn't always tell me the specifics, said he wanted to be sure before he put it in writing to me. So my memory of his findings is," she made a gesture with her hand, "impressionistic. But you know the general shape?" "The general shape, yes. 3 transactions, 2 shell companies, a third entity that's harder to identify. And the transfers correspond in timing to certain personal expenditures of Adrian's that weren't disclosed in our joint financials." She pulled her jacket tighter, though it wasn't cold. His lifestyle expanded in ways that didn't track with documented income. He was hiding money before the divorce. Before and during. Almost certainly after, too. She paused. Which means the divorce case, if it ever goes properly before a judge, has real exposure for him. Logan understood now, with more clarity than before, why a man with Adrian Cross's resources would spend 8 months on a sustained campaign to make Sophia Bennett seem unreliable, emotionally compromised, and possibly criminal. Not because the ring mattered, not because the paintings mattered, but because the woman who created those paintings, who understood her own company's finances and had already found one good attorney who'd gotten close, that woman, credible and clear-eyed before a judge, was an actual threat. Everything else was cover. "He's not trying to win the divorce," Logan said. Sophia looked at him. "He's trying to disqualify you from it," Logan said. "Make anything you say in a courtroom easy to dismiss." She was quiet for a moment. "Yes," she said. "That's exactly what he's doing. And your attorney knows this." "She does. She's building around it." Sophia looked at the ground. "But it takes time, and in the meantime—" Her phone buzzed. Not a call. A message. She looked at it, and he watched her face do the thing it did. The immediate stillness, the microsecond of recalibration. She turned the phone toward him. The message was from her sister Carla's number. It said, "I need to talk to you, please. Not for him. For me." Logan read it twice. "Could be genuine," he said. "Could be. Could also be him using her phone." "Yes." Sophia stood holding the phone, looking at the message. "Carla wouldn't normally say for me like that. She'd say, 'I need to talk to you, call me.' Just direct. She doesn't hedge." She touched the screen. "The for me is different." "Different how?" "Like she's distinguishing herself from something. Like she knows there's a reason I might think she's calling on behalf of someone else." She looked up. "That sounds like someone who's had second thoughts. Or someone being coached to sound like that." "Yes." She put the phone in her pocket. "I know." Maya appeared from the direction of the creek, boots wet to the ankle, cupping something in her hands. She walked to Sophia first, which she'd been doing all day without appearing to notice she was doing it, and held out a smooth, flat green stone the size of a quarter. "For you," she said. Sophia took it. "Why this one?" "It matches your ring." Maya pointed to the small ring Sophia wore on her right hand. Not the emerald, which Logan now knew was in a bank safety deposit box 400 miles away, but a simple gold band with a green stone of some kind. "See?" "I see." Sophia closed her fingers around the creek stone. "Thank you." Maya considered her for a moment with that committee consulting look. "You're allowed to be sad," she said, with the gravity of someone delivering a considered judgment. "You don't have to not be sad around us." Sophia opened her mouth and closed it again. Something moved through her face that she didn't quite manage to control. Logan looked at his daughter and felt the familiar, complicated pride of watching someone be exactly who they were. "Okay," Sophia said softly. "Thank you for telling me that." Maya nodded as though the matter were settled, then turned and went to help Logan with the firewood, narrating her rock findings to Gerald as she went. Sophia stood by the truck for a moment longer. She was looking at the creek, or at something beyond it. Her hand was closed around the green stone. Logan built the fire without saying anything. Sometimes the most useful thing was just keeping your hands busy and staying nearby. After a while, she came and sat beside the fire ring, and they talked about small things. The creek, the drive tomorrow, whether Maya's Atlas obsession was something to encourage. and the weight of the day settled around them the way smoke settles, not gone, just lower to the ground, and a little easier to breathe through. But when Logan went to check his phone before bed, there was a second message from the unknown number. This one had an image attached. It was a photograph. Taken from a distance, slightly blurred with telephoto compression, but clear enough. It showed his truck at the gas station in Packwood. It showed Sophia walking out with the 2 coffees. It showed the angle of the shot, from across the street, from something elevated, a second floor or a vehicle roof. Taken that morning, hours ago. He sat in the dark of the RV cab and looked at the photograph for a long time. They'd found a campsite that wasn't in any database. They'd changed the route. They'd turned onto an unmarked forest road. And still someone had been there, in Packwood, with a long lens and patience and time. He didn't wake Sophia. Not tonight. But tomorrow he would. Because whatever this was, and he was running out of ways to believe it was anything except exactly what it looked like. It was getting closer. Outside, the creek ran on over the stones, steady and cold and indifferent, and the trees were very dark and very still. He showed her the photograph over breakfast, not the way you show someone something you're trying to soften. No build-up, no careful framing. He just handed her the phone while Maya was down at the creek, arguing with a stick that had gotten lodged against a rock, and let her see it. Sophia looked at it for a long time. The mug in her other hand went untouched. "Packwood," she said, "yesterday morning, while you were inside with Maya." She turned the phone slightly as if the angle would tell her something new. "This is a long lens. This wasn't someone standing on the sidewalk. No. They followed us from Portland, or they picked us up somewhere between there and Packwood." She handed the phone back. Her hand was steady. "The texts before. Those could have been designed to make us nervous, make us move, make us stop somewhere." She looked at the creek, where Maya had now recruited the stick into some purpose and was directing it with authority. "They wanted to confirm I was with you." Why does that matter to him? Because it changes the story. She finally drank from the mug. Right now, in every legal filing, in everything he's told people, I'm unstable, I'm isolated, I'm struggling. A woman who got in a truck with a man she barely knows and disappeared fits that narrative better than anything he could have written himself. Logan had already thought of this. He'd been turning it over since 2 a.m. He'll use it in the divorce proceedings. He'll use it everywhere. She set the mug down on the camp table. And the photograph? If his private investigator has been documenting this trip, there's a record. Me in your truck. Me at your campsite. Maya in the frame. He said Maya's name on the phone yesterday. I know. She looked at him directly. I want you to understand something, Logan. If you want to take Maya and go back to Portland, away from this, I mean that. I would walk back to the highway and call a cab, and I would not hold it against you. You already said that. I'm saying it again because now there are photographs. I heard you both times. He looked at the creek, at Maya, who had now built some kind of dam structure and was evaluating it critically. I'm not going anywhere. Why not? She said it without aggression, just genuine inquiry. You don't know me. This is not your problem. Maybe not. He picked up his own coffee. But it is now. She studied him for a moment like she was looking for the angle, the self-interest, the calculation underneath the simple statement. When she apparently didn't find one, she looked back at the creek. We need to find the tracker, she said. He nodded. He'd come to the same conclusion around 3 a.m. The texts and photograph meant proximity, yes, but the precision of it, knowing their campsite last night, being in Packwood that morning, suggested something more consistent than a car following them down forest roads without being spotted. Your bag, he said. Your phone, your bag, your jacket, anything you brought from the house. Sophia stood immediately and went to the RV. Logan followed. They went through her duffel bag first, methodically. Every pocket, every folded item, every corner. Logan turned the bag inside out and ran his fingers along the seam tape. Nothing. Her jacket next, which she'd worn the morning she left. Every pocket, the zip-out lining, the hood seam. His fingers stopped at the inside back hem of the jacket. There was a slight rigidity that shouldn't have been there. Not a stiff seam, not a sewn-in label, something else. He worked the fabric apart at a weak point in the stitching, The jacket was older, the hem wasn't fully intact, and found it, small, about the size of a shirt button, maybe a little thicker, black, almost weightless. A GPS tracker, sewn into the hem of a jacket she'd owned for 2 years. Sophia stared at it in his palm. She didn't say anything for a moment. "That's not new," Logan said. "The stitching around it is old. Whoever put this in there didn't do it last week." "He's been tracking my location," she said, slow, like she was processing the geometry of it. "Through the jacket, this whole time." She stopped. "The studio, the gallery. Every time I went to see Daniel, every time I met with my attorney." She put a hand on the RV's cabinet door, steadying herself without making a show of it. "He knew every meeting I had, every person I talked to." Logan closed his hand around the tracker. He knew when Daniel was driving. The silence that followed was the kind that changes the temperature of a room. "We can't just throw it in the creek," Sophia said, when she could speak again. "That's evidence." "I know. We also can't keep it on you." She thought for a moment. "We keep it, separate from me. Somewhere it can still transmit. If we turn it off or destroy it, he knows we found it. If it keeps transmitting from somewhere else, he doesn't know what we know." Logan turned this over. "That buys us time." "Yes." He found a Ziploc bag in the camp supplies and sealed the tracker inside it, then put it in the bottom of the camp kit box in the truck bed, underneath the spare propane canisters and the tarp. Let it transmit from there. As far as Adrian Cross was concerned, Sophia was still sitting in this campsite. Maya came up from the creek with muddy boots and the specific satisfaction of someone who had accomplished something hydrological. She looked at the two of them standing by the truck and read something in the air with the accuracy children have that adults tend to underestimate. "What happened?" she said. "Adult stuff," Logan said. "That's what you say when something bad happened and you don't want me to worry." "You're too smart," he told her. "I know." She pulled off a boot and dumped water out of it. "Is Sophia okay?" "I'm okay," Sophia said. Her voice was back to level. "Your dad found something that was causing a problem, and now it's not going to cause as big a problem." Maya looked at her father, then at Sophia, then back. She made a decision internally about what to believe and apparently settled on probably true, good enough for now. She pulled the other boot off. "Can we make something good for breakfast?" she said. "Not oatmeal, something that takes more effort." "I can do eggs," Logan said. "With the peppers from the cooler?" "Yeah." "Okay." She patted toward the fire ring in her socks, apparently satisfied with the state of the world for the time being. Adults followed her because that was, Logan had found, usually the right instinct. They broke camp after breakfast and drove east, following the forest route deeper into the Cascades and away from any road that connected easily to the highway. Logan stopped checking the mirrors as often. Not because he thought they were clear, the tracker gave them cover for now, but whoever was on the other end of those photographs had resources. But because constant checking was a thing he could feel Maya noticing, and she'd had enough to absorb already. Around midday, with the road winding up through switchbacks toward a ridge, Sophia's phone rang again. She looked at it. "Carla?" "Same number as the text?" "Yes." He kept his eyes on the road. "Your call." She answered. "Carla." Flat, careful. Logan couldn't hear the other side, but he could feel the shape of it. Not controlled, not measured. Unsteady. Someone talking fast and low like they were worried about being heard. "Slow down," Sophia said. "Slow down, Carla. I can't." She stopped, listened. Her expression shifted in a way he hadn't seen before. The careful neutrality dropped, replaced by something that was equal parts anger and something softer and more complicated. "When?" she said. A pause. "What did you sign?" Longer pause this time, Sophia very still. "Carla, what exactly did it say?" Logan took a curve and leveled out onto a straight stretch with a view eastward, the mountains layered into the distance in green and gray. He drove steady and let her talk. "I'm not angry at you," Sophia said finally, and she said it in a voice that suggested she was working to make it true as she said it. "I'm not, but I need you to understand what those statements do to my case." A pause. No, listen to me. He's not protecting you. He's using you. There's a difference. Her voice dropped. Where are you right now? A short answer on the other end. Are you safe? Whatever Carla said made Sophia close her eyes briefly. Don't sign anything else. Whatever he shows you, whatever he tells you the reason is, don't sign it. Can you do that? A pause. I know you're scared. I know. Her hand on the phone was tight. I need you to trust me, not him. Can you do that right now? Just right now. Just this one thing. A longer answer. Okay, Sophia said. Okay. I'll call you tonight. She paused. Carla, I love you. I know you didn't. I know. She ended the call. The road curved again, back into trees. Logan waited. She says she didn't understand what she was signing, Sophia said. Her voice was careful, the way voices are when they're sorting out what to believe while speaking. She says he framed it as protective, testimony that would prevent me from making rash decisions with company assets, that he was trying to look out for me. She exhaled. She believed him. She trusted him more than she trusted me, and I don't entirely blame her because he's been working on her for years, and I haven't been available. I've been managing everything else. Is she in a safe place? I think so. She's at her apartment. She doesn't live with him, doesn't work for him. Sophia looked out at the passing trees. She says she's been having second thoughts since she signed, that she's done research on her own, and she doesn't like what she's found. A pause. She found a record of a transfer that Adrian made to a company that employed Daniel Marsh's former paralegal, 8 weeks before Daniel died. Logan's hands tightened on the wheel, then deliberately relaxed. She found that herself, he said. She was looking into it. She said she couldn't stop thinking about it after. Sophia's voice was quiet. She said she's sorry. She said it about 4 times. What are you going to do with it? Tell my attorney. Document it. Have Carla write down exactly what she found and how, so it can't be dismissed as hearsay. She paused. And I need to tell my attorney about the tracker. All of it. You should. I will. Maya had been listening from the back seat with transparent pretense of being absorbed in her atlas. She looked up now and said, Is your sister okay? Sophia turned around. She's going to be. Is she coming? Sophia paused. I don't know yet. Maya absorbed this and looked back down at the atlas, tracing a road with her finger. It's okay if she does, she said. There's room. Sophia faced forward again and said nothing, but Logan saw her close her hand around the green creek stone she'd put in her jacket pocket that morning. But they found the next campsite by 3 in the afternoon, another spot from Logan's notebook, a flat clearing off a forest road east of the main Cascades corridor, a place so unvisited the fire ring was half buried in pine needles, and the log bench beside it had moss growing across the top. He spent an hour clearing it while Sophia and Maya gathered wood, and by the time the light was going long and amber through the trees, the site looked almost intentional. It was Sophia who found Carla first. Logan was at the truck, looking at the camp kit box where the tracker sat in its plastic bag, calculating when Adrian might notice the location hadn't changed in 24 hours and what he'd do about it, when Sophia made a sound, not loud, just a single sharp inhalation, and said, Logan. He turned. A car had come down the forest road. A small white sedan, city car, completely wrong for this terrain, moving slowly over the uneven ground and stopping 20 yards from the campsite. The door opened and a young woman got out. She was younger than Sophia, with the same dark hair but shorter, wearing the kind of clothes you'd wear in an office, not a forest. She stood by the car door looking at Sophia across the clearing with an expression that was a complicated mixture of relief and dread, and what Logan had learned to recognize as the specific shame of someone who knows they've done a wrong thing and is about to have to account for it. How did you know where we were? Sophia said. She was very still. Carla held up her phone. The tracker, she said. I knew he had one in your jacket. I saw him put it there. Over a year ago, I didn't understand what it was then. When I figured it out, when I started understanding what he actually was, I wrote down the app he uses, the login. She paused. I've been following the signal since Portland. A short silence. Then you know where it is right now, Logan said. Carla looked at him, seeing him properly for the first time, recalibrating. Yes, it's not moving. It's been at a fixed location since this morning. A pause. You found it. It's in the camp kit, Sophia said. On the truck. Carla's face changed, something like relief. Then he doesn't know you're here. Not yet. Sophia hadn't moved. What do you want, Carla? The younger woman's face tightened. I want to... I know what you're going to say. I need to hear it anyway. Carla stepped away from the car door. She walked toward Sophia and stopped 6 feet away, and she said, I'm sorry. I didn't understand what the statements were for. He told me they were to protect you from yourself, and I believed him because I wanted to believe him, and because it was easier than believing that the person who's been in our lives for 4 years was doing what he was actually doing. She stopped. That's not an excuse. I know it's not an excuse. But I need you to know I wasn't trying to hurt you. She swallowed. I was being stupid. I was being naive. I was being the thing he needed me to be, and I didn't see it until what? Sophia's voice wasn't cruel. It was just honest. Until he started monitoring my phone, too. Carla said it quietly. I found the same app he used on your jacket. On my phone. He'd installed it when I left my phone charging in his office 6 months ago. She looked at her sister. That's when I understood that I wasn't someone he was protecting. I was just another piece of the picture. From beside the fire ring, Maya was watching with Gerald held against her chest. Logan stayed where he was by the truck, close enough to be present, far enough not to intrude on something that wasn't his. Sophia crossed the clearing in 4 steps and put her arms around her sister. Carla made a sound against her shoulder. Not quite a sob, something more pressured and exhausted than that. The sound of something held for months finally let out in the wrong order. Logan looked at Maya, who had the expression of someone watching something sad and good at the same time, which was a complicated expression for an 8-year-old, and she wore it well. They stood that way for a while, the 2 sisters, the forest quiet around them. Then Sophia pulled back and held Carla by the shoulders and looked at her. The transfer, Sophia said. The one to the company that employed Daniel's paralegal. You have documentation? Screenshots, emails. I forwarded everything to myself before I left. Carla nodded. It's enough. I think it's enough. You haven't sent this to anyone else? No, I didn't know who to trust. You send it to Renata, my attorney. Sophia turned to Logan. Do we have signal here? He checked his phone. 2 bars, barely, but there. Enough. Then tonight, Sophia said. She looked back at Carla. Tonight we send it. They made room for Carla in the camp without much discussion. Logan set up the second tent, the one he brought as backup, which he did every year for reasons he never had to articulate until now. And Maya drafted Carla immediately as an assistant in the fire-building operation, which Carla submitted to with the bewildered willingness of someone who had not made a campfire in several years and was being instructed by an 8-year-old about the importance of proper kindling to log ratios. It was during the fire that Logan first thought about the timing. Carla had followed the tracker signal from Portland. She'd driven the route that corresponded to where the signal was transmitting: the forest road, the campsite, the truck. She'd arrived because the tracker showed Sophia's location, but the tracker wasn't on Sophia anymore. It was in the camp kit, fixed, which meant that if Adrian had access to the same signal, and he almost certainly did, it was his tracker, his app. Then he also knew the tracker's current location, and Carla had just driven here from the direction of Portland. Logan moved to Carla, away from the fire and the others. Tell me exactly how you found us, he said quietly. Step by step. Carla looked at him, then at his expression, and her own face changed. I followed the app, the GPS coordinates. I entered them in my navigation and drove here. Does anyone else know where you were going? No, I left quickly. I didn't tell anyone. Did you tell Adrian you'd been following the signal? No, of course not. Is there any possibility he knows you have access to the tracker app? She thought about it. Her face was not the face of someone entirely sure. I changed the login on my own phone after I found his app. But if he's been monitoring my phone, he knows you have his login. He might know. Logan looked at the tree line on the far side of the clearing. The light was failing, the trees going from green to dark, and the campfire was putting shadows out across the ground. "When did you leave Portland?" he asked. "This morning, about 8. "How long does it take to drive here from Portland?" 3.5 hours, maybe 4. He looked at his watch. She'd arrived at 3, left at 8, give or take. He thought about the photograph from Packwood, taken yesterday morning. Whoever took it had been ahead of them, in position, with a long lens. If Adrian had the tracker signal too, and if he'd seen that signal stop moving at this campsite, at this forest road, he'd had since this morning to calculate where Sophia was. He'd had since this morning to drive here himself. Logan walked back to the fire without running. He sat beside Sophia and said quietly, near her ear, "He might know where we are." She turned her head. "How?" If he still has access to the tracker app, he has the same coordinates Carla followed. He watched her absorb this. She looked at Carla across the fire, not with blame, she'd moved past that, but with the practical look of someone revising a calculation. "He could already be close," she said. "He might not be," Logan said. "I don't want to move if we don't have to. If we run every time we think he might be close, we run forever." He paused. "But I want you to know." "I know." She looked at the fire. She stopped. "I want the recording." He looked at her. "What recording?" "If he comes here," she said it quietly, not quite a whisper, but close. "And I think he will, because this is who he is. He can't stand a situation he doesn't control. If he comes here, he'll talk. He always talks. He needs to be the smartest person in the conversation. He needs you to know how smart he is." She looked at Logan directly. "If he comes here and talks, I want that on record." Logan thought about it. It wasn't a complicated idea. The complicated part was everything that came after. Your attorney would need it. Yes. And it would need to be admissible. "Washington is a one-party state," she said. "I consent to the recording. That's all the law requires." He looked at her for a moment. "You've thought about this." "I've had months to think about it." She held his gaze. "I know it might come to nothing. I know he might not say anything that matters. But if there's a chance—" "I have a voice recorder on my phone," Logan said. "Old habit. I use it when I'm taking measurements at work." He took the phone from his pocket. "I'll start it now." She nodded. He opened the app and hit record and set the phone on the log bench beside him, face down, unobtrusive. The small red indicator went to green. He left it there. Maya came around the fire to sit between Logan and Sophia, because the dark was coming up through the trees and she preferred company when the light changed. And she leaned against Logan's arm and looked at the fire and didn't ask any questions, which meant she understood something was happening without needing to name it. Carla sat across the fire, warming her hands, and she looked tired and younger than her age and like someone who had made a large decision and was now sitting with its consequences, which Logan recognized as a particular kind of courage. The forest was quiet. The fire crackled. The recording ran. Logan watched the tree line. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Then he heard it, the sound that didn't belong, the sound of a car moving slowly over unpaved ground, no headlights, coming down the forest road from the direction of the highway. He put his hand briefly on Maya's shoulder. She looked up at him. "Go in the tent," he said. "Take Gerald. Stay there." She read his face. She didn't argue. She took Gerald from beside her on the log and walked to the tent and went inside and zipped it. The car stopped at the edge of the clearing. The door opened. Adrian Cross stepped out. Logan had not seen the man except once, briefly, over a neighbor's fence. A handshake and a smile, and the faint sensation of something being communicated that wasn't words. He was taller than Logan had registered, and good-looking in the specific way that reads as trustworthy. Clean lines, nothing excessive, a face that would photograph well in any context. He was dressed well without appearing to have dressed carefully, which took effort. He moved across the clearing with a deliberate ease, the ease of someone accustomed to arriving places and finding them already arranged to his benefit. He looked at Sophia first, then at Carla, and something moved through his face at the sight of her. Brief, contained, gone. Then at Logan. "You must be the neighbor," Adrian said. His voice was exactly what Logan had expected from everything Sophia had described. Warm, measured, with just enough ease in it to make you feel like you were already on the same side of things. He said the neighbor the way you'd say it about a minor character in someone else's story. "Logan Reed," Logan said. He didn't stand up. "Adrian Cross." He said his own name like it was a reference Logan should recognize. Then he looked at Sophia. "I'd like to talk." "You're talking," Sophia said. "Privately." "There's no private here." She sat where she was, her hands in her lap, her voice absolutely level. "Whatever you want to say, you say it here." Adrian looked at her for a moment, then at Logan, then at Carla. The easy manner shifted very slightly. Not dropped, just recalibrated. "Carla," he said, "you drove a long way." "I did," Carla said. She was looking at him without the deference Logan suspected he was accustomed to from her. "I imagine your sister has been doing a lot of talking." "We've talked," Carla said. "Yes." He turned back to Sophia. His voice when he spoke to her had a different quality than with the others. Familiar, with a softness that was too precisely deployed to be natural. "I came because I'm worried about you. I don't know what you think is happening here." "I know what's happening," Sophia said. "But you left without talking to me, without your attorneys, and you're in a national forest with a man you barely know, and our divorce proceedings are ongoing," Sophia said. "Through our attorneys, as they should be." "Sophia," he exhaled, patient, indulgent. "The things you've been saying, the accusations." "I haven't made public accusations." "The things your attorney has been filing." He moved slightly closer, and Logan tracked the movement without looking at him directly. "I understand you're in pain. I understand the last year it's been hard for both of us. But the claims about the finances, about Daniel Marsh," he stopped. Something crossed his face that was almost correct as concern, but not quite. "Daniel was a tragedy. What happened to him was a tragedy. And the idea that someone has suggested to you that I had anything to do with—" "No one suggested it to me," Sophia said. "I arrived at it myself." "Based on what?" His voice stayed warm, but there was an edge now under the warmth, fine as a blade. "Based on what, Sophia? A timing coincidence. Because you were in a certain—" "Based on a payment," she said. "To a company that employed Daniel's paralegal. Before he died. Routed through an intermediary account in your name." The fire crackled. The trees were very dark. Adrian Cross was very still. "That doesn't exist," he said. "It exists," Carla said. He turned to look at her sister, and Logan saw it then. The thing that Sophia had tried to describe in the rain, in the truck, across 2 days of careful accounting. The face underneath the face. Just for a second, just the edge of it, before the warmth came back and covered it over. "You've been going through records that aren't yours," he said to Carla. Quiet. Still warm, but differently warm. "That's actually a legal issue in itself." "They were forwarded to me," Carla said, "by a colleague of Daniel's who knew I was asking questions." "Forwarded records aren't—" "They correspond with verified bank statements," Sophia said, "which my attorney already has copies of." He turned back to her. The patience was still there on his face, but it was working harder now. "I don't know what you think this accomplishes," he said. "Out here, in the middle of nowhere. The ring is still—" "His mother gave it to her," Logan said. Everyone looked at him. He hadn't spoken for a while, and his voice came out very quiet and very even. "She told Sophia to keep it," he said. "Said she'd need it someday." He looked at Adrian Cross directly. "I think she knew what her son was." Something happened then. Something quick and uncontrolled that Adrian Cross did not entirely manage to stop, and it moved through his face in the half-second before his expression reset, and Logan thought, there it is. The thing that had been trained out of the public version of this man. The thing that lived underneath the warmth and the patience and the carefully maintained reasonableness. "She was ill," Adrian said. His voice had a different quality now. Still controlled, but the control was the control of a man working at it consciously. "She was confused toward the end." She didn't. She was perfectly clear, Sophia said. She was not in a position to. She pressed it into my hand, Sophia said, and looked me in the eyes and said those exact words. Keep this. You'll need it someday. She was coherent. She was deliberate. And she knew you, Adrian. She knew you better than anyone. The fire between them sent shadows across his face, and for a moment the careful assembly of him, the good clothes, the measured voice, the calibrated warmth, looked like exactly what it was. A performance of a person, a very practiced, very long-running performance. You have nothing, he said. Quiet now. You have a woman who's dead, a lawyer who's dead, a sister who signed documents she's now trying to retract for emotional reasons, and a recording that... He stopped. The words sat in the air between them. A recording. Logan watched him understand what he had just said. Sophia didn't move, didn't look at the phone on the log bench, didn't do anything that would confirm it or deny it. Adrian Cross looked at her face and read it the way a man reads a face after 4 years of marriage, and whatever he found there was not what he needed to find. You should go, Sophia said. Our attorneys will be in contact. He stood there for another moment. The fire went on burning. The dark around the clearing was absolute. This isn't over, he said. No, she said, it isn't. He turned and walked back to his car. The door closed. The engine started. The car moved back up the forest road and its sound faded into the trees, and then there was only the fire and the creek somewhere in the dark and the recorded silence where he'd been. Logan picked up the phone. The recording was still running. He stopped it. His hand was steady. He hadn't known it would be, but it was. Carla let out a breath that sounded like she'd been holding it for about 3 minutes. From the tent, Maya's voice. Is it okay now? Come out, Logan said. The tent unzipped. Nobody slept much that night. Logan kept the fire going later than usual, not for warmth, but for the light it put into the clearing, the way it pushed the darkness back to the tree line and made the space between them visible. He sat with his back to the truck and his face to the road and didn't pretend he was doing anything except watching. Sophia and Carla talked for a long time on the far side of the fire, low voices close together on the log bench, the kind of conversation that had years of sediment in it. Things said wrong, things not said at all. A relationship that had been running on incomplete information and now had to be rebuilt on what was actually true. Logan could hear the shape of it without hearing the words. Carla cried at one point, briefly, and Sophia didn't tell her to stop. Maya had fallen asleep against Logan's arm, and he'd moved her to the tent at some point past 10, and she'd gone without fully waking, taking Gerald with the automatic certainty of someone who knew the important things would still be there when she came back. Around midnight, Sophia came and sat beside Logan. She's asleep, Sophia said. How is she? She'll be okay. A pause. She's angry at herself. That's going to take longer than tonight. Give it time. I know. She looked at the fire's low burn. I keep thinking about what he said, the recording. You think he'll come back? Not tonight. When things don't go the way he expects, he retreats. He reassesses. He doesn't make moves he hasn't thought through. She exhaled. He'll call his lawyers in the morning. Then so will you. Yes. She turned the green creek stone over in her fingers. She'd carried it all day, Logan had noticed, the way some people carry a coin or a worry stone. Renata is going to want the recording immediately. She'll also want Carla's documentation, the screenshots, everything forwarded to herself. She paused. And she's going to want to know about what he said. About Daniel. Logan had been turning this over since Adrian's car disappeared up the forest road. He hadn't said it out loud yet, but he said it now. He didn't confess to anything. No. He said a recording before he stopped himself. That's consciousness of guilt, Sophia said. It's what lawyers call it. He knew there was a recording, he knew what he'd been saying, and he stopped himself. That's evidentiary in itself. She looked at Logan. It's not a confession, but combined with the financial records, with Carla's testimony, with the tracker, it builds a picture. And the picture is enough? For the divorce case, probably yes. The financial case against him becomes much stronger with Carla's documentation. She paused. For anything related to Daniel, That's a criminal investigation, and I'm not the one who initiates it. That would have to come from law enforcement, and it would take time and resources and a prosecutor who was willing. She stopped. I'm not naive about that part. He's a very well-connected person. But it starts, Logan said. But it starts. She looked at the fire. Yes. They sat without talking for a while. An owl made its sound somewhere in the dark above them. The fire settled. I want to ask you something, Logan said, and you don't have to answer. Ask. Are you scared he'll do something? Not legal, not lawyers, something else. She was quiet for a long moment. I've been scared of that for 8 months, she said. Every time I drive home at night, every time I'm in a parking structure, after Daniel. She stopped. The honest answer is yes. The other honest answer is that I can't live in that particular fear anymore. I've been living in it, and it's like trying to breathe underwater. Eventually you have to surface whether you're ready or not. Logan nodded. He understood that exactly. He'd lived in a different version of the same thing after Ellen. The fear of what came next, of what else could go wrong, of the specific terror of loving people when the world had shown you clearly how fast it could take them. It never went away. You just learned to operate around it. He said this isn't over, Logan said. He says that to everyone. She turned to look at him. But he also knows that I have a recording. He knows Carla has documentation. He knows his own lawyers are going to tell him to stop escalating. A pause. He's dangerous, and he's calculating, and he doesn't stop easily. But he's also not stupid. He knows when the math has changed. You hope. Yes, she said simply. I hope. The fire burned down to coals while they sat there, and eventually Logan put the last of the wood on it, not because they needed it, but because he wasn't ready to let the light go quite yet, and neither was she. Morning came gray and damp, with low clouds sitting on the treetops, and the smell of rain coming from the west. Logan made coffee and woke everyone before 6, not with urgency, not with the rushed quality of someone managing a threat, but with the practical firmness of someone who understood that what needed to happen today was best done in the right order, without hurry, and with clarity. Sophia called Renata Voss at 6:45, standing at the edge of the clearing with her back to the camp and her voice low and precise. Logan didn't listen, but he watched, and what he saw in her posture during that call was different from anything he'd seen in the last 3 days. The braced, controlled quality was still there, but the direction of it had shifted. She wasn't containing herself anymore. She was aiming. The call lasted 20 minutes. When she came back to the fire, her expression was the settled, deliberate expression of someone who had just set something significant in motion and was now waiting for it to move. She wants the recording, Sophia said. She's filing an emergency motion today regarding the tracker as illegal surveillance, and she wants Carla on a call this afternoon. Carla was sitting on the far side of the fire with a cup of coffee and the slightly shell-shocked expression of someone still processing the previous 24 hours. She'd borrowed a sweater from Sophia's bag, and it was slightly too large, which made her look exactly as young as she was. I'll be on the call, she said. You don't have to. I said I'll be on the call. She met Sophia's eyes. I signed the statements. I help undo them. That's how this works. Sophia looked at her sister for a moment. Then she nodded once and didn't make it into something bigger than it was, which Logan thought was probably the right call. Maya was sitting on the running board of the truck, eating the last of the dried mango, watching all 3 adults with the calm attention of someone at a movie she found genuinely interesting. When Logan sat beside her, she leaned against his arm without looking at him. Are we going home? She asked. Probably tomorrow, he said. We've got 1 more day. She considered this. Good. I found more rocks yesterday I haven't shown Sophia yet. She'll want to see them. I know she will, delivered with absolute confidence. They broke camp slowly, without the compression of leaving early urgency. Logan checked the camp kit box. The tracker was still in the Ziploc bag where he'd left it, still transmitting its fixed coordinates to wherever Adrian's app was running. He looked at it for a moment, then took it out of the bag and weighed it in his palm. It was small, button-sized, the kind of thing you'd overlook on the hem of a jacket unless you were looking for it. He thought about how long it had been there. Over a year, Carla had said. She'd seen him put it in before she understood what it was. Over a year of Sophia moving through her life with this thing sewn into a garment she wore without thinking, to studios, to meetings, to her attorney's office, to places she thought were private. He put it in the cup holder in the truck cab, not the box. He wanted to hand it directly to someone. Renata Voss, when he described it on Sophia's phone during the morning call, had said, "Don't destroy it. Don't alter it. Chain of custody matters. I want that in a sealed bag with a note of when and where it was found." He'd already done that. She seemed faintly surprised, then readjusted. "You're organized for a furniture restorer," Renata said. "I document everything in my work," Logan said, "before and after. It's habit. Good habit." They drove west through the morning, retracing a different route from the one they'd come in on, and the clouds moved with them, heavy and low. The mountains were invisible behind weather. The road came back to pavement, and then to highway, and the trees opened up to wider views, and everything looked like a Wednesday in any other week, except it didn't feel like one. Carla followed in her white sedan, a few car lengths back. Maya had spent 15 minutes before departure deciding whether Carla should ride with them or take her own car, and ultimately ruled that Carla should keep her own car because people need to have their own thing, which was a sentence Logan was fairly sure she'd heard him say at some point and filed away. Around mid-morning, stopped at a pull-out where the highway overlooked a river valley. They ate what was left of the camp food: granola bars, string cheese, the end of a bag of crackers. Standing by the truck and watching the valley fill with cloud, Carla came and stood beside Sophia and said, "When I get home, I'm going to a notary. I want everything in formal written statements before the weekend." "Renata is going to send you a document template," Sophia said. "I know, but I want my own record too. Independent." She paused. "I did research on the company, the one that employed Daniel's paralegal. It was incorporated 4 months before Daniel died and dissolved 6 months after. The only named officer was a nominee director, the kind you use to keep the beneficial owner off the public record." Sophia looked at her. "How did you find that?" "I have a friend who works in corporate research." Carla said it without apology. "I asked her to look into it quietly. She found the incorporation documents, the nominee arrangement, and a registered address that's a mail drop in Delaware." "That's..." Sophia stopped. "That's actually very useful." "I know." Carla looked down at the valley. "I've been building a file for 2 months. I was scared to do anything with it. I kept thinking I was wrong, that I'd misread everything, that you were the way he said you were, and I was being paranoid." She paused. "Then he put the app on my phone." "What changed after that?" "I stopped doubting my own reading of things," Carla said. Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then she turned to her sister and said, "I should have called you more. When things started, I should have talked to you instead of just..." She stopped. "I was managing it, everything. I was so used to managing it myself." "I know. That's not entirely your fault, and it's not entirely mine." "I know that too." Carla looked at her. "We're going to argue about it eventually. Probably more than once." "Probably. That's okay. It wasn't a resolution. It was a beginning of one, which is a different and more honest thing." Logan ate a granola bar and looked at the valley and gave them room. They reached cell coverage around noon, real coverage, and Sophia's phone began delivering a backlog of notifications with the relentlessness of a system that had been storing things up. She went through them methodically in the passenger seat while Logan drove, her face giving very little away. "His lawyers filed something," she said. "What?" "A motion to hold the divorce proceedings while a separate complaint is investigated." She scrolled. "The complaint alleges I violated the marital asset freeze by traveling out of state with personal property." A pause. "He's claiming the emerald ring." "The ring is in a safety deposit box in Portland." "Yes." She read further. "He knows it is. His filing references the box location." She looked up at Logan. "He knows the bank. The branch." "How does he know which branch?" She said nothing for a moment. "He must have been monitoring my banking notifications. The deposit confirmation would have listed the branch." She put the phone down on her knee. "He's had access to my email, my location, probably my banking alerts." She said it in the careful voice of someone cataloging damage. He built this case over months. Can the motion delay things significantly? It can delay things. Renata will fight it. She picked the phone up again. She's already sent 3 messages this morning. She says the tracker evidence significantly changes the landscape. An illegally placed GPS device constitutes stalking under Washington state law. It shifts the framing from contested divorce to documented harassment. Does that change what he can file? It changes how a judge reads what he files. She scrolled again. There's also a message from Helen Park. He waited. The gallery owner, Sophia said, in Seattle. She was quiet for a moment, reading. Then she said with the controlled expression of someone receiving news they've wanted for a long time but have stopped expecting. She wants to reschedule the exhibition. She's not scared of him anymore? She says she was contacted by 2 other artists who had similar experiences with Adrian. Sophia was still looking at the phone. People she knows in the Seattle arts community. They've been talking. They have their own stories. She put the phone down slowly. She says she should have been braver sooner. She says the work deserves to be shown. The highway ran west and the cloud shifted, and for a moment there was actual sun, low and pale, nothing dramatic, just enough to change the quality of the light on the road ahead. That's good news, Logan said. Yes, Sophia said quietly. It is. Maya, who had been running the geography game in the back seat against Carla via shouted exchanges through the window's rest stops, leaned forward. What's good news? Someone wants to show Sophia's paintings, Logan said. In a real gallery? In a real gallery. Maya sat back and appeared to add this to the file she was keeping on the world. I want to see them sometime, she said to Sophia. The paintings. When they're up, Sophia said, I'll take you to see them. All of them. Even the bolted furniture one? Sophia paused. When did I tell you about that one? This morning, Maya said. You were talking to Carla. I was eating mango. I thought you were listening to your atlas. I was doing both. Sophia looked at the road ahead and said, with genuine warmth, yes, even that one. But they stopped for the night at a motel outside of Chehalis. Clean enough, nothing special, 2 rooms side by side, the kind of place that had an ice machine at the end of the hall and a parking lot view and carpet that had seen too many years of interstate travelers. Logan would have preferred another campsite, but the weather had turned properly and Maya had a cold developing at the edges. He'd heard her sniff twice before noon, and a dry room with a decent bed was more important than the aesthetic of the thing. Maya approved of the ice machine with unreserved enthusiasm. They ate at a diner across the highway. Real food, hot food, the kind of place that had laminated menus and bottomless coffee and a counter with swivel stools. Maya ordered a hamburger with practiced authority. Carla ordered soup and looked like someone who was still recalibrating to the idea of a normal hour. At one point during the meal, Carla looked across the table at Logan with the directness of someone who had been working up to a question for a while. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Why did you do this? Any of this? You could have said no. You could have said... She gestured vaguely. It's not my problem. Logan picked up his coffee. He thought about it honestly because he didn't like empty answers. I've had a few years of things that weren't my problem, he said. After my wife died. Just me and Maya and the work and keeping the world very small. He paused. Somewhere in there it becomes a habit. Small world, small risk, nothing that asks too much. He looked at the coffee. I saw someone in the rain with a bag and something that should have been a joke didn't stay a joke, and he stopped. I don't know. It felt like the right direction. The right direction, Carla repeated. Sometimes that's all you have. Which way feels less wrong than the others? Carla looked at him for a moment, then at Sophia, then back. She hasn't trusted anyone in a very long time, she said. It came out quietly, not as an alert or a warning, just a fact she was handing over carefully. I know, Logan said. She doesn't show that part. I know that too. Carla nodded and looked back at her soup. Sophia, who had been talking to Maya about the hamburger, glanced over at them and then away, too quickly to have caught the whole exchange, but long enough to have caught enough. She didn't say anything about it. Neither did Logan. Some things don't need to be spoken to be understood. They were back at the motel by 8, and by 8:30 Maya was asleep with her cold medicine and Gerald arranged symmetrically, which was how she slept when she felt slightly unwell and wanted everything in its correct place. Logan sat outside on the walkway that ran along the motel rooms, in one of the plastic chairs that motels always have and no one ever cleans, with a cup of vending machine coffee that was bad. In the specific way vending machine coffee is always bad. And he looked at the parking lot and the highway beyond it and let the day settle. Sophia came out 10 minutes later and took the chair beside him. "Carla's on the phone with Renata," she said. "Good." The coffee from the machine, she had apparently decided, was not worth the attempt, and she sat with nothing, just her jacket and her hands in her pockets. "I want to tell you something," she said. He waited. "The morning I got in your truck," she looked at the parking lot. I knew it was an impulsive and probably irrational thing to do. I've spent 4 years having my judgment questioned, and I'd started believing it, at least partly. The part of me that used to trust my own instincts was very quiet." She paused. "But you were standing in the rain looking at me like I was just a person who'd had a bad morning, and you made that joke, and something in me said—" She stopped, looking for the right word. Said yes before my head could explain why. "Your instincts are fine," Logan said. "I know that now." She turned to look at him. "I knew it a little bit then, but I know it better now." A pause. "You didn't try to fix things. You didn't tell me what to do. You just drove." She said the last part like it meant something specific, and he thought he understood what it meant. "My daughter tells me I'm better at driving than talking," he said. "She's not wrong. She's never wrong. That's what she thinks too." He looked at the highway. A semi went past, headlights and the diesel sound, and then gone. "What happens when we get back?" he asked. "Renata files on Monday. The tracker evidence goes to her by end of day tomorrow. The recording gets reviewed by a specialist she uses." Sophia said this in the calm, procedural voice she used for things that were serious. "Adrian's lawyers will respond, probably by midweek. There'll be countermotions, probably some kind of public statement from his side." She paused. "His reputation starts to crack at the edges, slowly, the way it does when there's enough documentation that even his version of events has too many holes in it. And the criminal investigation. That goes through a different channel. Renata has a contact at the state attorney's office. I'm not at the center of that. I'm a source of information, not the driver." She looked at the highway. "That part is out of my hands." "You okay with that?" "I have to be." She paused. "What I am in control of is the divorce, the company, the ring, and the exhibition." She said the last word with a different quality than the others, something personal under the professional. "Helen wants the show in November, 4 months from now. Will you be ready?" "The paintings are already done." Something moved through her face that was quiet and settled and certain. "I've been ready. I just needed the room." Logan drank the bad coffee. She sat with her hands in her pockets. The highway went on doing what highways do. "Logan," she said. "Yeah." "When this is over, the legal part, the proceedings, all of it, I want—" She stopped. Tried again. "I don't know what comes next. I'm not—" She exhaled. "I'm not good at this. Saying things like this." "I'm not either," he said. "I know." A small pause. "I think that's why it's easier to say it to you than to most people." He turned to look at her. She was looking at the highway, her profile lit by the motel sign's orange light, the tiredness of the last 3 days evident in the line of her jaw and the weight around her eyes, and she looked entirely real, entirely unglamorous, entirely herself. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "You don't know what you're agreeing to." "Probably not." He looked back at the highway. "Didn't stop me the first time." She was quiet for a moment. Then she made a sound that was almost a laugh, the same surprised kind she'd made at the gas station in Longview, and it was the best sound in the parking lot by a significant margin. "You're very annoying," she said. "I've been told." They sat there while the highway ran on and the motel sign buzzed, and the night did what nights do, which is mostly just hold things until morning. The drive back to Portland the next day was quieter than the drive out had been, which was a different kind of quiet. The first day's quiet had been the quiet of strangers in a small space, careful, provisional. This quiet was something that had been broken open and put back together in a slightly different configuration, the kind you get after 4 days and a fire and a man appearing out of the dark, and a recording that ran when it needed to. Maya sat in the back with Carla, who had followed from the motel in her white sedan to the edge of the city before pulling over and transferring herself to Logan's truck on Maya's insistence, her own car to be retrieved later. Maya had assigned Carla to co-narrator duties for the geography game, and Carla had accepted with the resigned affection of someone who was being incorporated into a system she didn't fully understand but recognized as benign. Portland came up on the interstate in the way Portland does. The hills first, then the buildings, then the bridge visible over the river. And Logan felt the particular mix of things that always came with returning from this trip. The relief of familiarity, the small resistance to the end of the road. He took the exit for their neighborhood and turned onto the street and came to a stop in front of his house. Sophia's house was next door. The front looked the same as it always had. Logan had walked past it for 2 years without thinking much about it. He looked at it now and thought about what he now knew was inside the shape of it. The monitoring, the control, the careful daily architecture of a life that had been built to look one way and operate another. The front door looked like any front door. "Don't go back in there tonight," Logan said. Sophia was looking at the house. "I wasn't planning to." "Good. I have my attorney's address." "She said I could." "You can stay here," Logan said. "We have a couch." She looked at him. "It's a good couch," he said. "Maya's obsessive about it. She'll want to take your opinion." "It's a very comfortable couch," Maya confirmed from the back seat. Carla, beside Maya, said nothing but looked at the window with the expression of someone who had decided it was not her place to comment and was actively maintaining that decision. Sophia looked at the house next door for another moment. Then she looked at Logan. "Okay," she said. He got out of the truck. The neighborhood smelled like rain and cut grass and someone down the block making something in an outdoor grill, and it was entirely ordinary and entirely his. He reached into the truck bed for his bag, and Maya was already out and on the sidewalk arguing with Carla about whether Gerald needed a separate pillow, and Sophia stood by the passenger door with her duffel bag over one shoulder, and the afternoon was pale and real, and nothing had been resolved yet. The lawyers, the filings, the investigation that would take months, the exhibition that was still 4 months away, the thing between Logan and Sophia that had no clear name yet and didn't need one. But it was all in motion now, all pointing forward, and sometimes that's the only thing you can ask for at the end of a long road. Logan picked up his bag and walked toward his front door. Sophia followed. The couch was, as advertised, comfortable. Sophia slept on it for 2 nights before Renata strongly suggested she move somewhere Adrian had no legal claim to monitor. And Logan drove her to Carla's apartment on the east side, where the two sisters navigated the particular awkwardness of sharing a small space after a long fracture, bumping into each other's routines and habits and histories in ways that were sometimes tender and sometimes just annoying, which was probably the healthiest possible way for that repair to begin. Logan went back to his shop on Monday. He had a mid-century credenza that needed new veneer and a Victorian writing desk whose hardware had been replaced badly sometime in the 80s and needed undoing. He stood in his workshop with the smell of raw wood and mineral spirits and the particular silence of a space where you know exactly what every tool does and where every tool lives, and he let the week settle back around him. But things had changed, and he knew they had, in the quiet, specific way that things change when you've been somewhere real with someone and come back carrying the weight of it. He called Sophia on Tuesday, not for any particular reason, not to check on the legal proceedings, just to call. She answered on the second ring, and they talked for 40 minutes about nothing especially important. A problem with one of her company's software vendors, a rock Maya had left on Sophia's borrowed overnight bag that Sophia had found and kept, the question of whether vending machine coffee was ever genuinely acceptable or always an act of desperation. It was a conversation between two people who had already done the hard thing and were now finding out who they were to each other in ordinary time, which is a different and sometimes more difficult negotiation than anything that happens in a crisis. On Thursday, Renata Voss filed the emergency motion regarding the tracker. The filing described in precise legal language what Logan had described to Renata in plain terms, a GPS tracking device, manufacturer identified by Renata's tech specialist, sewn into the hem of a garment belonging to Sophia Bennett by her husband Adrian Cross, actively transmitting location data for a period of no less than 14 months. The filing cited the specific sections of Washington state law that made this a criminal act, not merely a civil grievance, and requested that the court take immediate notice of this conduct in the context of the ongoing divorce proceedings. Renata also filed a secondary motion challenging the legitimacy of the financial freeze on Sophia's personal assets, attaching as exhibits the documentation Carla had gathered: the corporate registration records, the nominee director arrangement, the timeline of transactions that corresponded to the period before Daniel Marsh's death. She did not allege murder. She alleged that the financial records raised questions serious enough to warrant independent forensic review, and requested that review. Adrian's lawyers filed responses within 48 hours. The responses were dense, technical, and argued at length that the tracker had been placed with Sophia's knowledge as a mutual safety arrangement, that the financial records were being misrepresented, and that the entire proceeding was a pattern of bad faith litigation by a party who had abandoned the marital home without notice. The judge read both sets of filings and ordered a preliminary hearing. Sophia told Logan about all of it, in pieces, over phone calls and 2 dinners at a Thai place near Carla's apartment, where Maya monopolized the conversation, and Carla sat across from Logan with the slightly watchful expression she'd had since the campsite. Not suspicious, just careful, the care of someone who had been wrong about people before and was revising her methodology. "She's evaluating you," Sophia told him, walking back to his truck after the second dinner. Carla had taken Maya ahead to show her the used bookstore 2 doors down that was still open. "I know," Logan said. "She does that with everyone." "It's fine." "She liked you from the start," Sophia said. "She's just not ready to say so." "I'm not in a hurry." Sophia looked at him in the way she did sometimes, the look that had no performance in it, just someone seeing someone else clearly. "You're not in a hurry about anything," she said. "It's actually slightly maddening." "I work with old furniture," he said. "You learn to wait. And when you're done waiting?" He thought about it. "Usually the thing turns out to be worth it." She was quiet for a moment, and then she smiled. Not the surprise short version, but a slower one, the kind that knew what it was doing. "You're still annoying," she said, consistently. Maya appeared in the bookstore doorway, holding a book about turtle migration and calling for Sophia to come look at the pictures, and the moment folded back into the ordinary evening, which was where Logan had started to understand that the good things actually lived. The preliminary hearing was in September. Logan didn't attend because he had no legal standing to attend, but he drove Sophia to the courthouse in the morning and sat in a coffee shop 2 blocks away for 3 hours with a cup of coffee. He refilled twice and a magazine he didn't read, watching people walk past on the wet September street and thinking about the furniture restorer's particular understanding of what things look like before and after. When Sophia came out of the courthouse, she walked the 2 blocks to the coffee shop and came inside and sat across from him and said, "The tracker is inadmissible as a marital safety arrangement. The judge found that claim insufficiently supported, meaning it's evidence of stalking. She unwrapped her scarf. "His motion to freeze my personal assets pending the ring complaint is denied pending the forensic audit of the financial records." She looked at him steadily. "And the state attorney's office has opened a preliminary inquiry into the circumstances of Daniel Marsh's death." Logan set down his coffee. "Not a full investigation yet," she said. "Preliminary. They're looking at the financial records, the timeline, the company Carla found. They have the recording." She paused. "Renata said the recording is the most useful thing in the entire case. Not because of what he confessed. He didn't confess to anything directly. But because the specific phrase he used, a recording, and the way he stopped himself demonstrates that he was aware of his own liability in that moment. A man with nothing to hide doesn't stop mid-sentence because he realized someone might be recording." "Consciousness of guilt," Logan said. "Yes." She looked at the table. "It won't be fast. Nothing about this part will be fast, but it's started." Logan thought about Daniel Marsh, whom he had never met, driving a road he'd driven for 11 years in conditions that shouldn't have been treacherous, at an hour when the temperature record said the road was fine. He He thought about a man who was careful and methodical and had been building a case that was getting too close to something someone didn't want found. He thought about what it meant that a recording of 3 careless words in a forest clearing had started the process of answering for that. "Are you okay?" he asked. She considered the question seriously, the way she'd learned to do with his questions. "I'm not done being scared," she said. "I think that part takes longer than the legal part." She looked up. "But I feel like I'm standing in the right place. Even when things are difficult, I know which direction I'm facing." She paused. "I didn't have that a year ago." "You had it," Logan said. "You just couldn't get to it." She looked at him for a moment. "Maybe. Not maybe." She let that stand. Outside, September rain moved down the window glass, and the street reflected the coffee shop lights, and everything was damp and ordinary and moving forward. The divorce was finalized in October on a Tuesday, which was an unremarkable day for something significant, but most significant things happen on unremarkable days. Sophia called Logan from outside the courthouse. He was mid-measurement on a chair leg and almost dropped the tape when his phone buzzed, but he got it. "It's done," she said. "How do you feel?" A pause. "Like I've been holding my breath for 18 months and I just exhaled." "That's a good feeling." "It's a strange feeling. It's good and strange at the same time." She was quiet for a moment. He kept his public statement controlled. His lawyers released something this morning saying the proceedings were concluded respectfully by both parties. She said respectfully with no particular heat, just a slight weight on the word. His reputation isn't gone. It's damaged. People in certain circles know more than they did. His board has been asking questions. The forensic audit found 3 more transactions than Carla's research identified. The inquiry is still open. The inquiry is still open. That part isn't done. She paused. "I don't know if it will ever be fully done. I've had to make peace with that. Some things don't resolve cleanly. Some things just become less present over time." "The ring," Logan said. "I picked it up this morning from the safety deposit box." He could hear something in her voice that was layered, relief and grief, and something else he couldn't name from a distance but recognized as the particular emotion that comes with reclaiming something you'd accepted you might never get back. "I'm going to take it to Helen for the exhibition. She'll know what to do with it." She already has an idea. She said she wants it in the room with the paintings, not behind glass, just present, part of the space. Sophia paused. "She said the work and the ring are part of the same story." Logan thought about a room full of paintings that looked perfect from a distance and showed you something different up close. He thought about what it took to make work like that, and then have the courage to put it in a room for strangers to stand in front of. "The opening is November 14th, Sophia said. "I know. You and Maya should come." "Maya's been planning her outfit since August," Logan said. "She found a book about emeralds at that used bookstore. She's been waiting for an excuse." Sophia laughed. The full version, unguarded. "Tell her I'm bringing her a proper invitation. A real one with her name on it. She'll put it in the important observations notebook." "Good. That's where it belongs." Chorat. November came with the particular quality of Pacific Northwest November. Low sky, rain that was sometimes serious and sometimes just ambient, the city going orange and dark around the edges while the evergreens stayed exactly themselves. The gallery was in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood, a converted warehouse space with good bones and better light, the kind of place that held the work without competing with it. Helen Park had been preparing the space for weeks, and when Sophia walked Logan and Maya through it 2 days before the opening, the paintings were hung, and the lighting was set, and the ring was placed on a simple stand at the center of the room. Not a pedestal, not behind glass, exactly as Helen had said, just present. And Logan stood in the entrance of that room and understood immediately what Sophia had been trying to say in the truck on the first day, when she'd described the work. The rooms and the paintings looked right from across the gallery. He walked toward one, the kitchen, the one with the cabinets nailed shut. From 10 feet away, it was a well-rendered, warm kitchen scene, morning light, everything in its right place. At 5 feet, you started to see it. The nails were small, painted the same color as the wood, almost invisible. But they were there. every cabinet, every drawer. He stood in front of it for a while. "You're doing the thing," Maya said, appearing at his elbow. "What thing?" "The thing where you look at something for a really long time and don't say anything." "It's good work." Maya looked at the painting. "The cabinets don't open," she said. "No. Why would someone paint that?" Logan thought about how to say it to an 8-year-old and then decided she probably didn't need it simplified. "Because some people live in kitchens where the cabinets don't open," he said, "and nobody looking from outside would know." Maya was quiet for a moment, then, "Sophia lived like that." "For a while, yeah, but not now." "Not now." She nodded, the committee having reached its verdict. "The staircase one is my favorite," she announced, and moved off to find Sophia. He stayed in front of the kitchen painting for another minute. He thought about craftsmanship. Not the artistic kind, though that was there, but the other kind. The craft of controlling something so thoroughly that even the person inside it stopped seeing the nails. He'd spent 2 weeks working on a Victorian writing desk in his shop, undoing someone else's bad repair, finding where the original had been compromised and working backward to the thing underneath. It took patience. It took the willingness to damage the surface in order to get at what was actually wrong. Some repairs worked that way. Sophia appeared beside him. She'd been talking to Helen at the far end of the room. "What do you think?" she asked. The question was careful, genuinely curious, not performing modesty. "I think it's going to bother people," he said. "The good kind of bother. The kind you take home with you." She looked at the painting. "That's what I hoped." "How does it feel, to see it here?" She took a moment. "Strange," she said. "It was private for so long. Made in secret in a room under a name that wasn't mine. And now it's—" She gestured at the space, the light, the hung work. "It's just out there. Anyone can walk in." "Is that okay?" "It's more than okay." She looked at him. "It's the point. Work that stays hidden doesn't do the thing work is supposed to do." A pause. "Helen told me a woman came in during the installation to drop something off for the printer next door, and she walked past the entrance and saw the staircase painting and just stopped. Stood in the doorway for 5 minutes. Helen said she looked like she was trying to figure something out." Maybe she was. Maybe she recognized the staircase. Sophia said it quietly. "That's why you make the work, so someone else can recognize it." Logan looked at the painting again, at the nailed cabinets that looked so ordinary from a distance. "You should be proud," he said. "I'm getting there," she said. "It takes time to feel proud of something you've been taught to be ashamed of." She paused. "But I'm getting there." The opening on November 14th brought 200 people into that converted warehouse space, and Logan stood against the wall near the back and watched Sophia move through the room with a quality he hadn't seen in her before. Not the careful control of the woman in the rain, not the deliberate steadiness of the truck and the campfire, but something that was simply hers, unguarded, walking through a room full of her own work and her own truth and not apologizing for either. Maya stayed beside Carla for most of the evening, which had become her preference in the 2 months since returning from the trip. Carla had become, with the gradual naturalness of something that has room to grow, a fixture in their extended orbit. Present at dinners, at Maya's school concert, at the Saturday mornings when Logan was at the shop and needed someone reliable to be with his daughter for 2 hours. She was not a replacement for anyone. She was simply there, which was its own kind of gift. Helen Park gave a brief speech before the wine, the kind of speech that was genuinely short and genuinely meant, about the work in the room and what it took to make it and what it asked of the people who looked at it. She didn't talk about the past year. She didn't mention Adrian by name or the legal proceedings or anything that would have made the evening about a story instead of the work. She said, "The artist was brave enough to show you something true. I hope you'll be brave enough to look at it." Sophia stood in the back of the room while Helen spoke, and she was next to Logan, close enough that their arms were touching, and she was looking at her own paintings arranged in the room's light with an expression that was private and complete and not performing anything for anyone. Logan looked at the side of her face. He thought about a rainy Portland morning, a woman with a duffel bag and a haunted expression, a joke that hadn't stayed a joke. He thought about the truck cab with rain on the windshield and the careful, damaged way she'd started talking about her life, like testing weight on a floorboard before committing to a step. He thought about the campfire and the recording, and a man stepping out of the dark with his mask slightly off, and the specific look on his face when he realized the conversation had gone differently than he'd planned. He thought about what it meant to be the kind of person who controls things, who builds systems of control so intricate that the person inside the system stops seeing the architecture. And he thought about what it cost to dismantle that, not just legally, not just officially, but inside yourself, in the place where you keep your trust in your own judgment and your own voice. Sophia had paid that cost. She'd paid it over months and years and sleepless nights, and the dismantling of a marriage, and the grief of a sister's temporary betrayal, and the loss of an attorney who'd gotten too close to the truth. She'd paid it, and she was standing here with her work on the walls, and the ring on a simple stand in the center of the room, and 200 people looking at nailed cabinets and stairways to nowhere, and trying to figure out what they recognized. That was not nothing. That was, in fact, the whole thing. Helen finished speaking. People moved back into the room. A woman near the staircase painting put her hand over her mouth for a moment before composing herself. A man Logan didn't know asked Sophia a question in front of the kitchen painting, and she answered him directly and without deflection, and he nodded and looked at the painting again with new eyes. And that was the work doing what work is supposed to do. Maya found Logan at one point and stood beside him with a glass of apple juice from the catering table and said, in a low voice, "The woman in the blue dress has been looking at the garden painting for 11 minutes. I timed her." "What do you think she's thinking?" "I think she knows someone with a plastic garden," Maya said, and went back to Carla. Logan thought about what his daughter had said, and about all the things she understood that she hadn't been explicitly taught, and about how the world gets inside children in ways adults forget because they've been living with it so long they stopped noticing. The evening ran long in the good way that evenings run long when people don't want to leave. Logan wasn't a gallery person. He was much more comfortable with a work table and a set of chisels than with wine and art talk. But he found himself staying past when he'd planned, talking to a furniture collector who'd recognized Logan's shop from an online listing and had questions about a sideboard, talking to Carla about whether Maya's rock collection needed a formal organization system or whether its current chaotic state was part of its character, talking to Helen Park for 20 minutes about the difference between restoring something and preserving it, which turned out to be a question that had the same answer in furniture and in paintings and possibly in people. By 10 o'clock, the crowd had thinned to the people who actually knew each other, and Helen's assistant was beginning the quiet business of indicating that the evening was winding down. Maya had fallen half asleep in a chair in the corner with Carla's coat over her, and Gerald inexplicably present, despite not having been visible earlier in the evening. Logan was helping stacking glasses when Sophia found him. "Leave those," she said. "Helen's got people." He left them. She walked him to where Maya was sleeping, and he lifted his daughter, who made a small sound and settled against his shoulder with the total trust of someone who knows she'll be carried without having to think about it. Carla took Gerald and her coat and followed. Outside, the November street was cold and damp, and the gallery's warm light came through the windows onto the sidewalk. The city was doing what cities do at 10 on a Friday: taxis, distant music, someone somewhere laughing at something. Sophia stood on the sidewalk and looked at the gallery windows. "How do you feel?" Logan asked. He was holding Maya with one arm, and his daughter was definitively asleep now. Sophia thought about it. She'd gotten better over the months at not answering this question with the first available deflection. She stood there in the November cold and actually thought about it. "Like myself," she said. It was a simple thing to say, and it was clearly not a simple thing to mean. "Good," Logan said. "It's been a while." She looked at the lit windows where her work hung inside. "A long while. Does it feel the way you thought it would?" "No." She turned away from the window. "Better. Quieter than I expected. I thought there'd be more of a, I don't know, more noise, more sensation." She shook her head slightly. "It's just quiet, clear." A pause. "Like standing somewhere you were always supposed to be and not understanding until this minute why every other place felt slightly wrong." Logan understood that. He understood it specifically, from the inside, from the years after Ellen, when every room in his own house had felt provisional, like he was allowed to be there, but not certain it was actually his. And then one morning, He couldn't have told you which morning. There was no single moment. He'd stood in his workshop and smelled the sawdust and the mineral spirits, and heard Maya singing something tuneless upstairs, and understood that this was his life, that he was standing in it, and that it was enough. Not perfect. Not what he'd planned. Enough. "I know that feeling," he said. She looked at him. "I know you do," Carla said at a tactful distance. "I'm going to get the car." And did. Maya shifted in Logan's arms and said, without opening her eyes, "Is the opening over?" "The opening's over, Bug." "Were the paintings good?" "They were very good." "Good." A pause. "Sophia should paint one of a turtle." "I'll commission it," Sophia said. "One with a creek stone," Maya said, and was asleep again. Sophia laughed, quietly, because of the sleeping child, but genuinely. And it landed in the cold air and disappeared and left something warm behind it. She stepped close and adjusted the collar of Logan's jacket, where Maya's weight had pulled it sideways, a practical, natural gesture, the kind you make without deciding to. She didn't step back immediately. "Carla thinks I should tell you something," she said. "You don't have to take instructions from Carla." "No, but she's usually right." She looked up at him. "I'm not good at this." The next part, I was married for 4 years, and somewhere in there I forgot how people do this, how you go from, she gestured between them, from whatever this is to what it might be. "It doesn't have a procedure," Logan said. "I know. That's what I'm not good at. Things without procedures." A pause. "I like knowing what the steps are. Usually you figure out the first step," he said, "and the rest shows up when you need it." She looked at him for a moment. "That's very unhelpfully vague." "I know." "And you're fine with that?" "Mostly." She shook her head, the slight exasperated motion he'd learned to recognize as a variant of affection. "Fine," she said. "First step." First step. Carla's car appeared at the end of the block, and Maya was fully asleep and getting heavy, and the November night was cold and clear and going on in every direction at once. 6 months after a rainy Portland morning, this was what was true. The criminal inquiry into the circumstances of Daniel Marsh's death was ongoing. It had expanded from preliminary to active in February, following the forensic audit's identification of a fifth transaction, one that connected the Delaware mail drop to a service company that had performed maintenance on the vehicle Daniel drove. It would take longer. These things always take longer than you need them to. But it was moving, and the people in charge of moving it were competent and not easily discouraged. And the documentation that Carla had gathered and Sophia's attorney had submitted was detailed enough to justify the time. Adrian Cross had not been charged with anything. His lawyers were good, and he was careful. And the law required more than what they currently had, which was the frustrating reality of these situations, and also the reason the work of gathering it mattered. His board had asked for his resignation in December, citing unspecified concerns about governance. He had declined, and they had removed him anyway. And that process was its own slow, ugly proceeding that would resolve in whatever way it resolved. His public reputation was damaged in the specific way that reputations damage when there is enough smoke that people start looking for the fire, even without being told to look. Some people in his circle still believed his version. Some always would. That was also a reality that had to be accepted and not mistaken for the whole truth. Sophia's divorce settlement gave her full control of the company she had built. The accounts Adrian had moved funds through were subject to audit and partial recovery, and the emerald ring remained hers. The case Renata had made was not perfect. No case is perfect, but it was thorough, and it was believed, and the judge was a careful reader of documentation. Sophia's company had a good year. She hired 3 new engineers in the spring and promoted 2 people who had been waiting for the internal politics to stabilize before committing fully to their roles. She was present at work in a way she hadn't been during the last 2 years of the marriage. Not more hours, not more visible, but more there. More like the person who had started the company in the first place and knew exactly what it was supposed to become. The paintings toured. After Seattle, Helen arranged for the exhibition to travel to Portland and then to San Francisco, and at each stop there were people who stood in front of the kitchen with the nailed cabinets, or the garden with the plastic flowers, or the staircase to the wall, and stood there long enough that Helen's assistants had to make quiet judgment calls about whether to check on them. Some of those people wrote to the gallery address. Helen forwarded the letters to Sophia, who read each one. The turtle painting existed. Sophia had painted it in February. In the studio she now rented under her own name, a small green turtle on a riverbank with a single flat stone the exact color of the one Maya had pressed into her palm. It was not part of the exhibition. It lived on Maya's bedroom wall, between the atlas and the important observations notebook, which by March had grown to 2 volumes. Carla had a therapist she was working with carefully and honestly on the question of how a person ends up signing documents that hurt their own family because someone they trusted framed it as help. It was not an easy question, and she didn't expect it to be answered quickly. What she knew was that she was asking it, which was more than she'd been able to do a year ago. Logan's shop had a wait list. Word spread the way it does when you do something well for long enough. Not through marketing, just through the objects themselves returning to use and people noticing. He hired an assistant in April, a 22-year-old who knew wood grain the way some people know music and needed someone to show him the patience part. And the road trips continued. That part did not change because some things are correct from the beginning and stay correct regardless of what grows up around them. In July, 3 people loaded into a truck instead of 1. Maya in the back with Gerald in the atlas and the important observations notebook. Sophia in the passenger seat with a sketchbook she used sometimes and mostly didn't. And the green creek stone in her jacket pocket because she'd moved it from jacket to jacket since October and had stopped thinking of it as a deliberate choice and started thinking of it as just what she did. Logan behind the wheel, with the paper map in the glove box and the notebook of campsite coordinates and the knowledge of which roads in the Gifford Pinchot looked passable and weren't. Nobody was watching them this time. No unknown texts, no telephoto lenses, no cars parked at the tree line with their lights off. The road was just a road. Ordinary, long, entirely theirs. At the first stop, a pullout above a river valley in the Cascades, Maya got out and stood at the guardrail and looked at the valley filling with morning light and said, "This is where the story started. Not this spot, but this direction, this road." "Pretty much," Logan said. "Do you think it's different now, the road?" He stood beside her and looked at the valley. He thought about what a road actually is, not the asphalt, not the mile markers, but the experience of moving through space with intention, with people, towards something you can't fully see yet and are moving toward anyway. He thought about all the ways the story of the last year could be told, as a legal case, as a record of a bad marriage and its dismantling, as a cautionary account of what certain kinds of power do to people, and how all of those would be true and none of them would be the actual story. The actual story was smaller and larger than any of those. It was a woman in the rain who got in a truck because something in her still knew which direction was right. It was an 8-year-old pressing a creek stone into a stranger's hand and saying, "You're allowed to be sad." It was a recording made on an ordinary phone because someone decided that the truth deserved a witness. It was 2 people who had each lost something they thought was irreplaceable, discovering separately and then together that the lost thing had not destroyed the capacity to build again. It was what people do when they're paying attention. "The road's the same," Logan said. "We're just better at it." Maya considered this, consulted her committee, nodded. "That's a good answer," she said. "Thank you." "You've been practicing." "A little." Sophia came and stood on his other side, coffee in hand, looking at the valley. Her shoulder was against his arm and she didn't move it, and neither did he. The morning light moved across the green of the mountains, and the river in the valley below caught it and gave it back, and everything was damp and real and impermanent and here. There is something that people talk about when they talk about second chances, and it is often framed as restoration, the thing returned to what it was before the damage. But that's not actually what second chances are in the lived experience of them. Nothing is returned. Nothing goes back. What happens is different and harder, and if you're lucky, better. You build something new out of what you actually have, which is the truth of where you've been and who you've become inside it. And you build it knowing what you didn't know before, with the specific knowledge that everything can be taken away, and that you will make it through that taking and come out the other side still essentially yourself. That is not a guarantee. It is not a comfort. It is just what it is. The thing that becomes visible when you stop waiting for the perfect conditions and start building in the actual weather. Logan Reed knew how to restore things. He knew the patience of it, the careful undoing of the wrong repairs, the attention required to find the original material under the damage. He knew that the point was never to make something look untouched. The point was to make it true again, to let it be itself, with its age and its history and its repaired places showing, and still solid, still useful, still worth having in the room. Sophia Bennett knew how to make work that told the truth. She knew what it cost to stand in front of people with your true thing and let them look at it without softening the lines. She knew that the work was not about her, finally. It was for the woman who stood in front of the staircase painting and couldn't move for 5 minutes because she recognized the wall at the top. Maya Reed knew that rocks from creek beds were significant, that turtles required respect, that adults needed to be told when they were allowed to be sad, and that when someone needed to get in a truck, you made room. These were not small things to know. The road went on ahead of them, through the Cascades and east and wherever it went after that, and there were 3 people standing at a guardrail in the July morning looking at the valley below, and none of them were who they had been a year ago, and all of them were more themselves, and the coffee was good, and the sky was clearing, and the truck was packed, and they had somewhere to be that wasn't yet a specific place on the map, and that was exactly right. "Okay," Maya said, "let's go." They went.